Chapter 771. You did it on purpose? In the arena, Lan Zi looked at Lu Yi with an annoyed expression. Out of 100 people, he had chosen her. This was not on purpose. What was it? Lu Yi was too lazy to explain anything to her. Not to mention that he didn't do it on purpose. So what if he did it on purpose? He raised his hand and pressed it on the hilt of the Pan Shan saber. In his current state, he was about to charge out in the next moment. Don't make a move. I will admit defeat. Lan Zi's words made Lu Yi feel extremely uncomfortable. Although he had defeated Lan Zi in one match, he had only displayed his magic. He was in the middle of the Cloud River battle. If he didn't fight properly, he would admit defeat. Lu Yi didn't know whether to say that this woman was sensible or not. She was still timid and cautious. Although I don't know how I offended you, to make you so targeted, I still want to say that since you can't kill me, it doesn't matter how you target me. Use it. Also, I can't say what you said last time. Before he could finish his words, Lu Yi had already rushed out. Under the support of Wind Walk, he was behind him. He left an afterimage. Lan Zi was furious and blurted out, "Admit defeat." As her figure disappeared, Lu Yi rushed to the place where she was originally standing. In front of her. If you admit defeat, then admit defeat. Cut the crap. However, he didn't know that after Wuxia, there was a second person in this world. He didn't want to see him. The battles in the top 100 were indeed very intense. Basically, every battle had to be fought. After a long battle, according to the rules set by Tianji, there were 3 people who were challenged. They had 2 hours of rest time. In other words, even if the person who was challenged accepted the challenge, there were 3 hours. They had time to adjust their condition and recover from their injuries. As a result, Lu Yi had a long gap between each of his battles. After defeating Lan Zi, he waited for a full 12 hours before he succeeded. He challenged his second opponent. The battle ended very quickly. Naturally, he had won a complete victory. It had to be said that the people in the top 100 of Yunhe were all extraordinary. They were afraid of knowing that it was Lu Yi who challenged them, even if they were injured. However, no one had ever rejected his challenge. There were even people who took the initiative to challenge him. They might not believe that Lu Yi's strength was as exaggerated as the rumors said. Maybe it was just out of confidence in himself, or maybe he didn't want to miss out on being with Lu. Yi Zichen had a chance to fight. In short, these people came from the top sections. After fighting with Lu Yi, regardless of whether their bodies were injured or not, the Heavens Chosen who had fought with Lu Yi had all recovered. More or less, there was some trauma in the heart. Because the strength displayed by Lu Yi had already exceeded their understanding. The limit. What everyone didn't know was that this wasn't Lu Yi's limit. According to the rules of Tianji, he was allowed to bring amber with him. With the fusion of his qi and blood, his strength would become even stronger. 2 days later, the 10 battles were finally over. He returned to the green bamboo peak and continued to cultivate. Soon he forgot about the flow of time. Fleeting. Lu Yi only came back to his senses when the battlefield imprint moved. The 3rd round of the Cloud River contest had ended. He checked his own battlefield imprint. He saw that the information recorded in the last column had changed. Cloud River Battle Ranking, 1st place. The 1st round of the Cloud River battle for supremacy was to select from the countless cultivators of the Cloud River tier. 3,000 people. In the 2nd round, 100 people would be selected from the 3,000. However, there was no ranking in these 2 rounds. There was only the 3rd place. After the end of the round, the top 100 of the Cloud River battle would be temporarily determined. The ranking was then revealed. These 100 people were undoubtedly the most powerful in the 9 states Cloud River realm in the past 5 years. The essence could be said that all of them had the potential to break through to the Divine Sea realm. As soon as the 2nd round ended and the list was announced, it caused a stir. All the sects in the 9 states paid attention. Now that there was a ranking, their attention was even more intense. The excitement was even higher. Even though they had already predicted it, when the masters of the various sections. When they saw the name in 1st place, they still found it hard to believe. With his Cloud River 8th Order cultivation, He suppressed all the geniuses of his generation. The Cloud River battle for supremacy in the 9 states had never happened before. Every generation of Cloud River battle for supremacy, without exception, it was always Cloud River. The cultivation of the 9th order. The difference in cultivation of the First Order was often the difference between heaven and earth. If an 8th order could take the first place, how terrifying would a 9th order be? Strength? And after this Cloud River battle for supremacy, Tianji would give out another reward. Lu Yi was not far from the 9th order. There was no room for human intervention in the ranking of the list. It was the luck of Tianji. Naturally, no one questioned the fairness of Tianji. In other words, Lu Yi to be ranked first, he had the strength to be ranked first. Fortunately, others had a chance because this list was only temporary. All right. The 4th round of the Cloud River battle for supremacy was the ranking battle. Through the victory and defeat of the 3rd round of battles, as well as the cultivators' performance in the previous battles, Tianji had temporarily determined the top 100 rankings based on their various performances. But to completely determine the rankings, the 4th round of the battle had to be completed. What the top 100 cultivators of Cloud River needed to do in the 4th round was to compete with the rankings. The cultivators in front of them would issue a challenge and win against the challenged cultivator. They would replace him in the rankings. There were 3 chances. In other words, there were 3 chances to fail. If they failed 3 challenges, they would have no chance to advance. The rules of the Cloud River battle for supremacy were the same every generation. Therefore, some cultivators did not show their true strength in the first 3 rounds of battles. They did not show their true strength, but hid it under the premise that it was possible. Only in the 4th round would they go all out and burst out with their full strength. The strength of the ministry. The biggest difference between the 4th round and the first 3 rounds was that they could watch from the sidelines. The cultivators of the 9 prefectures, no matter what their cultivation was, as long as they had their own battlefield. Through the imprint, they could throw their minds into the battles. They could observe the battles of these prodigies as a bystander. Battles. For the older generation of cultivators, such a bystander could let them see with their own eyes. They could see the performance of their own disciples and see their shortcomings clearly. In the future, they would have targeted pointers. At the same time, they could see the potential of the younger generation of the enemy camp. For the younger generation of cultivators, through such a bystander, there was no doubt that they could learn a lot of useful experience from it and see the strength of others. They recognized the gap between themselves and the strong, worked hard, and courageously chased after them. Therefore, for generations during the duration of the 4th round of the Cloud River battle for supremacy, every battle had countless cultivators immerse themselves in watching through the imprint. Often, the exciting and intense battles could make the cultivators talk about them with relish for a long time. For a period of time, the aftertaste was endless. On the green bamboo peak, Lu Yi rushed to the defense peak while checking the 100 prefectures. The complete list of the strong. Read the latest chapter, www.ziashwaxiap.com. He saw many familiar names, but there were also many that he had never seen before. Below his name was a person called Mu Qingyun. Lu Ye's eyes flashed. If he remembered correctly, the Beixian sword master's surname was Mu. This Mu Qingyun was very likely a sword cultivator from the Beixian sword sect. And he was the current generation's sword master. However, Lu Yi had never heard of this Mu Qingyun on the Cloud River battlefield. Yun. From the looks of it, he should be the kind of person who stopped in the Cloud River realm. He stayed for a long time and deliberately did not advance to the true lake realm, just to wait for the Cloud River battle. The kind of person. This kind of person usually did not move around the Cloud River battlefield. They were basically in the 9 prefectures. Even if he had made a big name for himself before, as time passed, he gradually calmed down. Looking up, among the top 10, the latest chapter, www.ziashwaxiap.com belonged to the kind of people who seemed to have suddenly appeared. But if these people's names were placed 1 or 2 years ago, many people in the Cloud River battlefield would definitely know. Just like him today. Lan Zi was ranked 11th. Although Lan Zi admitted defeat in front of him twice, this woman was actually very strong, but she was born at the wrong time. According to Lu Ye's estimation, her strength was definitely in the top 10. But the main factor that affected the ranking of the list in front of him was the previous battle. Lan Zi had been defeated by him before, so it was impossible for him to rank her too high. However, as long as she really had the corresponding strength, she could naturally take her time to fight. Feng Ru Lai, who had once introduced himself to him, was ranked 15th. These were not Lu Ye's concern. He just glanced at it and did not close it again. Finally, he found the name he was looking for on the 36th list. Giant Armor. This big guy had really achieved an incredible result. Compared to Lu Ye's cultivation, his cultivation was even lower, only Yunhe's. He was only in the 7th order, but he was ranked 36th. It was already a very high ranking. This meant that in the previous battles, he had been defeated. The number of times was definitely not more than 3. There were still benefits to having a strong physique. When facing an enemy who cared about your secret techniques, just charge through. However, Giant Armor's ranking was higher than 4th senior brother and Feng Yuechi. Lu Yi did not expect this. He did not know what the standard of Heaven's secret was. Was it? In the 42nd and 43rd positions. Lu Yi saw Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan's names were both on the list, one in front and one behind. He did not look at the list behind. What he cared about was those close to him. Those close to him were just a few people. As for the others, let's see how many of them there will be in another 10 years. Even Lu Yi himself did not dare to say what he would do in 10 years. In the process of a cultivator's growth, there were too many accidents and disasters. There were many geniuses who had their wings broken before they grew up. The crazy confrontation between the two camps had buried countless cultivators of the 9 regions. Dreams. Soon he arrived at Heaven's Secret Hall. Lu Yi sat cross-legged in front of the Heaven's Secret Pillar. He was at the top of the top 100, so he naturally did not need to challenge others. There was only one thing to do, and that was to wait here and let others challenge him. Fortunately, he had a lot of things to do, such as digesting the gift of the 100 Formation Tower, studying the books he had brought out from Madame Yun, and swallowing spirit pills to cultivate. Even if he was just waiting, it would not be boring. Time passed little by little. The battlefield imprint did not respond at all. Lu Yi was not surprised. According to the rules, only the 2nd-ranked person was qualified to challenge him now. Mu Qingyun and the 3rd-ranked Yang Yuan were likely not lacking in challengers. His courage was just that the time was not yet right. Chapter 772. With the outbreak of battle after battle, the ranking of the top 100 was constantly changing. When someone went up, someone would naturally go down. Names floated up and down on the list, making it extremely lively. Almost every battle would attract the attention of countless cultivators from the 9 states, especially the battles that were ranked at the top. Even the cultivators of the Divine Sea realm would watch them with great interest. Seeing the vitality of the younger generation, they couldn't help but recall their own past. On the first day of the 4th round, Lu Yi didn't receive any challenges and passed peacefully. On the 2nd day, he had nothing to do, so he found Giant Armor's name on the top 100 list and immersed himself in it. The next moment, a clear image appeared in his mind. It was as if this image was directly projected into his mind. This was also a unique way of watching battles for cultivators of the 9 states. In the familiar terrain of the battle arena, the burly Giant Armor was fighting fiercely with a Dharma cultivator. Lu Yi didn't know how long the battle lasted. When he watched the battle, he only saw that the Dharma cultivator's aura was fluctuating, and his expression was both fiery and emotionless as he was chased around by Giant Armor. This kind of terrain was actually not friendly for Dharma cultivators, because there wasn't much space to move around. If he had to choose the terrain of the battle, he would definitely not choose such a place. However, he was the one being challenged, while Giant Armor was the one who issued the challenge. The right to choose the terrain was in Giant Armor's hands. The Dharma cultivator was undoubtedly a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator. His strength and foundation were all extraordinary, and he danced in the air one after another. However, in the face of these powerful Dharma techniques that could make any ninth-order body cultivator retreat, Giant Armor, who was only a seventh-order cultivator, didn't care. He was like a mad beast, breaking every Dharma technique he encountered. Relying on his shockingly powerful physique, he forcibly shattered the Dharma techniques one after another, constantly chasing after the Dharma cultivator. Those powerful Dharma techniques bombarded his body, but at most, they could only slow him down slightly and cause him some flesh wounds. The muscles on his bare upper body bulged, and his entire body boiled like the sun. Lu Yi watched for a moment and knew that Giant Armor should be winning this battle. The advantages and disadvantages of the Giant Armor were extremely obvious. The advantage was that its physique was unbelievably powerful, and it could ignore most attacks. At the Cloud River tier, there were very few people who could unleash attacks that could threaten its life. Even the current Lu Yi would have to unleash the full power of the Myriad Stars technique if he wanted to do so. However, its weakness was that it was not flexible enough. Of course, this was only relative. One of them was doing his best but was unable to cause any effective damage to his opponent, while the other was chasing after his opponent but was unable to get close to his opponent. If one of them wanted to win, they could only wait for one side to run out of spiritual energy. Spell cultivators constantly cast spells, which consumed a lot of energy, but the Giant Armor didn't have this concern, so the spell cultivators should be the first to run out of energy. Furthermore, considering that he might have to challenge others in the future, or accept other people's challenges, he would definitely not allow himself to fall into a state of spiritual energy exhaustion. It shouldn't be long before Giant Armor's opponent admitted defeat. Just as Lu Yi expected, less than half a cup of tea later, the panting magic cultivator suddenly stopped running and looked helplessly at the Giant Armor that was charging towards him. He said, "Why did I have to meet a monster like you?" The Giant Armor ignored him and closed in on him, smashing a heavy iron fist down. "Admit defeat!" The magic cultivator shouted and his figure disappeared. The Giant Armor's fist hit empty air. He didn't care much. Ever since he participated in the Battle of the Clouds and River, he had experienced this scene too many times. Most of the time, others couldn't do anything to him, and he couldn't do anything to them either. It was always like this that he forced his opponent to leave. Naturally, Lu Yi wasn't the only one watching this battle. There were also some true Lake and Spirit Sea Realm cultivators from large sections. Although the Giant Armor didn't cause any damage to the magic cultivator from the beginning to the end, the strength of his physique moved those true Lake and Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. There were already many people secretly investigating the origins and background of the Giant Armor. Unlike Lu Yi, who stirred up a storm in the Battle of the Clouds and River and had a great reputation, no one paid attention to Giant Armor ever since he entered the Battle of the Clouds and River. Now that he suddenly showed his prowess, it naturally aroused the interest of those experts from large sections. Such a gifted body cultivator, if they could recruit him and nurture him, he would definitely be a big pillar of the sect in the future. After asking around, they couldn't find out anything about the Giant Armor. No one knew where he came from. This made those true Lake and Spirit Sea Realm cultivators who were interested in the Giant Armor feel helpless. After the Giant Armor's battle ended, Lu Yi went to watch the 4th Senior Apprentice Brothers battle. The 4th Senior Apprentice Brothers battle was much more intense. Sword chi crisscrossed, sword hums sounded, and flying sword light shuttled through the void. He fought with his opponent in full swing. It was the kind of battle that was both enjoyable to watch and real. The 4th Senior Apprentice Brothers' opponent's strength wasn't inferior to his, so Lu Yi couldn't tell who would win this battle. But as a sword cultivator, Li Baxian's every attack consumed a lot of energy. If he couldn't win in a short period of time, then he would be the one to lose. The sword cultivator was number 1 in the 9 regions, but the disadvantage was that it consumed too much energy. Until Li Baxian's body merged with the sword light and slashed out a ghostly attack in the void, it was as if the sword was used as a brush, splashing ink and writing a heavy stroke. This blow struck a flaw in the enemy's defense. Li Baxian's opponent was obviously taken aback, but before he could react, another sword light swept out. cutting through the void. It was like a sword. Book Sword's Secret Art. Although it hadn't been long since he obtained the Book Sword's secret art, Li Baxian's talent in the sword path was extremely high, and he had already comprehended something of his own from it. These two unpredictable sword strikes completely messed up the enemy's formation. One wrong move and the whole game was lost. A moment later, Li Baxian's opponent had admitted defeat and left, leaving only Li Baxian in his white robes, gently exhaling. This battle wasn't easy for him to win. Furthermore, he could sense that this was already his limit. If he wanted to climb any higher, he would have to raise his cultivation, but a 7th order Cloud River Realm cultivation was too much. Sighing slightly, he quickly left. This Cloud River battle was destined to make many Divine Sea cultivators of the 9 regions gasp in amazement, because not only was there Lu Yi, an 8th order Cloud River Realm cultivator. There was also a talented body cultivator like Zhu Jia, Li Baxian, and Feng Yu maidservant, and all 3 of them were only 7th order Cloud River Realm cultivators. This kind of thing had never happened in the past Cloud River battle. In the past Cloud River battles, the top 100 were almost all 9th order Cloud River Realm cultivators. Since when could 7th order and 8th order Cloud River Realm cultivators enter such a battlefield? And all of them performed extremely well. At the same time, another name entered the eyes of the cultivators of the 9 regions. Lan Zi. This woman, who was originally ranked 11th on the top 100 list, was steadily increasing her ranking. In the rules of the 4th round, challengers could only challenge opponents 2 ranks higher than them. They couldn't directly challenge those ranked higher. Lan Zi was originally ranked 11th, so she could only challenge the 9th place at most. So, after the first day of the 4th round, she replaced the 9th place. On the second day, she became 7th. On the 3rd day, she was 5th. By the 5th day, she had become 2nd, only below Lu Yi. Her unhurried style of moving 1F and 5L undoubtedly showed her absolute confidence in her strength. She believed that she could defeat the opponents in front of her and replace them. She really did it. Everyone who paid attention to this felt that it was incredible. Because the top 10, except for Lu Yi, were all masters who had been in the Cloud River realm for at least a year. Lan Zi was able to defeat all of them, which showed how powerful she was. And the cultivators who watched her battles could also see that this female cultivator wasn't the kind of person who only had cultivation but no corresponding strength. Her fighting style was changeable, and she was extremely experienced in fighting enemies. She could perfectly exert her strength, so almost every battle was easy for her to win. Only the battle with Mu Qingyun was more difficult, but it wasn't because Mu Qingyun's strength was far superior to the others. As a sword cultivator, Mu Qingyun's every move was a killing move, so Lan Zi had to be careful. In that battle, Lan Zi was injured, and Mu Qingyun's injuries were more serious. Everyone was waiting for her next move, waiting for her to challenge the unchallenged Lu Yi who had been occupying the first place until now. So, when the 6th day of the 4th round arrived, countless eyes in the 9 prefectures stared at Lu Yi and Lan Zi's names, anticipating the arrival of a shocking battle. However, everything was calm. On the 6th day, Lan Tongyi, who was ranked G0, did not show any signs of activity. It was unavoidably disappointing. Some people guessed that Lan Fani was injured in the previous battle with Mu Qingyun, so she must be recuperating today. She wanted to be in her best condition to fight Lu Yi. This guess was reasonable and naturally received the approval of many people. Under the eyes of tens of thousands of people, the last day of the 4th round arrived. More attention was paid to Lan Zi and Lu Ye's names than yesterday. The entire 9 prefectures seemed to be shrouded in an oppressive and expectant atmosphere. In front of the Tianji pillar, Lu Yi sighed slightly. He originally thought that in the 4th round he might have to fight with Mu Qingyun and Yang Yuan. These geniuses didn't lack the courage to challenge stronger people, and they were also willing to prove themselves on such an occasion. Even if it was just to see the means and elegance of stronger people, they wouldn't let go of such an opportunity. Because if Lu Yi was in their shoes, he would also make the same choice. But now, it seemed that there was no chance. Lan Zi was ranked 2nd now. This woman had admitted defeat twice, so it was impossible for her to challenge him. As for Mu Qingyun, who was pushed down by her, it seemed that her injuries hadn't healed yet. It was good enough that she could keep her third place. How could she have the strength to challenge others? Chapter 773. On the 7th day of the 4th round of the Cloud River Battle Royale, battles broke out one after another. Almost everyone on the list was fighting. The challengers and the ones being challenged kept changing their identities. Even Mu Qingyun was not idle. He was exhausted from the consecutive challenges of the 4th and 5th cultivators. Many people found it hard to understand why the top 2 cultivators were so calm. Wuxia did not move because he was temporarily at the top of the list and could not challenge anyone else. Why didn't Lanzi challenge Wuxia? Based on the powerful strength and foundation that this female cultivator had displayed before, she should be qualified to challenge Wuxia. She might even be able to pull him down from the top of the list. But gradually, some people realized what was going on. Lanzi's lack of action undoubtedly meant that the two of them had fought before. Looking back at the list after the 3rd round, Lanzi was ranked 11th. In other words, she must have lost the previous battle. With her strength, the only person who could defeat her was Wuxia, and perhaps more than once, Lanzi did not move because she knew that she was no match for him. Countless cultivators felt sad and disappointed when they realized that. There were not many female cultivators on the top 100 list. Lanzi came from an extraordinary background and was extremely beautiful, so she naturally gained a lot of fans. These people were all looking forward to her defeating Lu Yi. Now that they found out that Lanzi had already lost to Lu Yi and did not even have the courage to challenge him, they naturally felt sad. They also hated that high and mighty name more and more. The 7th day of the 4th round passed in this intense and strange atmosphere. When it was midnight, the top 100 list was completely fixed, which also meant the end of the Cloud River Battle Royale. Lu Yi checked the rankings. He was naturally in first place. He did not participate in a single battle in the entire 4th round. As the saying goes, when a person is sitting at home, the first place comes from the sky. This first place came unexpectedly easily. Lanzi was next. Mu Qingyun was ranked 3rd. As the current sword son of the Beishan sword sect, he was actually qualified to be first. If Lu Yi and Lanzi did not appear out of nowhere. Lu Qing was ranked 4th. Jianghu, who was originally ranked 3rd at the end of the 3rd round, was ranked 5th. The 6th was Feng Ruli. Lu Yi scrolled down and found that the giant armor was ranked 29th, which was not much of a change from its previous ranking of 36th. It was a small improvement. 4th senior martial brother and Feng Yuedi lived in 33rd and 34th respectively. They had always been inseparable and were evenly matched. If Hua Ci, who was in the top 300, was included, then all the people in Huitian Valley's spiritual land were on the list. They had gained a lot. Needless to say, Lu Ye's first-place reward was 20 golden spirit lots, which was even more bountiful than his harvest in the Soaring Dragon Realm's secret realm. After all, this was a grand event that only happened once every 5 years, so the heavens couldn't be stingy with the rewards bestowed by the heavens. This was also the reason why those cultivators who had already reached the peak of the Cloud River tier would rather delay their cultivation for a year or two than attempt to break through to the true lake tier. A core disciple from a top sect like Mu Qingyun probably didn't lack cultivation resources. The reward of the golden spirit lot might not be enough for them to make such a choice, but the blessing of the heavens was something that could only be encountered by chance. This was something that the cultivators of the 9 provinces would fight for if they could. The Cloud River battle for supremacy ended, but the aftermath would definitely take a few more months to dissipate. Especially in this Cloud River battle for supremacy, there were too many unexpected talents and battles, enough to make the great cultivators of the Divine Ocean tier inevitably pay attention. The moment the top 100 list was completely determined, Lu Yi, who was sitting cross-legged in front of the heavenly mystery pillar, felt the heavens descending from the unseen world. He had experienced this kind of thing several times, so he naturally wasn't alarmed. Long before the Cloud River battle for supremacy began, Huasi had told him that the top 10 would not only receive a large number of golden spirit lots, but also receive the blessings of the heavens. And the blessings of the heavens would affect a cultivator's own luck. Lu Yi used to think that luck was ethereal and intangible, and difficult to grasp. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't perceive luck, but the War Merit Pavilion should have a great relationship with the blessings of the heavens. He didn't know much about the War Merit Pavilion, only that it wasn't a place that ordinary people could enter. The last person who was qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion was a few decades ago. Lu Yi had been wondering why he was qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion these days. Perhaps it was related to the blessings of the heavens. Once the blessings of the heavens reached a certain level, one would be qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion. Collecting his thoughts, Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed it on the heavenly mystery pillar, connecting his mind to the heavenly mystery treasure house. The Cloud River battle for supremacy was over, and the blessings of the heavens were fulfilled, so it was naturally time to collect his spoils. Rewards bestowed by the heavens, such as the golden spirit lots, needed to be taken initiative to enter the heavenly mystery treasure house to collect them. After a short while, Lu Yi left the heavenly mystery hall and returned to Green Bamboo Peak. There were already 20 golden spirit lots in his storage space. He was now an 8th order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Not to mention 20 golden spirit lots, even if he only had 10, it would be enough for him to reach the 9th order Cloud River Realm. It was almost enough for him to reach the limit of the Cloud River Realm. However, he wasn't in a hurry to use these golden spirit lots to increase his cultivation. He had just broken through to the 8th order Cloud River Realm from the 6th order not long ago. Even though his foundation was solid and there were no hidden dangers, he still needed some time to settle down. It was fine if he slowly swallowed spirit pills to cultivate, but if he continued to use the spirit lots to increase his cultivation rapidly, it wouldn't be appropriate. Moreover, he was currently invincible in the Cloud River tier. Thus, his thirst for cultivation was no longer as urgent as before. He stayed at Green Bamboo Peak for 2 days. Lu Yi then bid farewell to Shui Yuan. The sect master wasn't at Green Bamboo Peak. Ever since he was taken away by Yun Xuechu, he hadn't appeared again. According to Shui Yuan, the sect master was now helping out at Bright Heart Peak, but Shui Yuan didn't know what he was helping with. Lu Yi had some guesses. He had given the damaged dragon throne to his honored master and asked her to help repair it, so his honored master should be busy with this matter. However, with her strength alone, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to do it, so she grabbed the sect master to help her. Inside the heavenly mystery hall, Lu Yi stood with his saber strapped across his body, Hoopa crouched on his shoulder, and he had already entered Hoopo's body. "Are you ready?" Lu Yi asked softly. Hoopa howled in response. Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed it on the heaven's fate pillar. Light dots immediately appeared in his mind. Each light dot represented a heaven's fate pillar. Among the countless light dots, there were 2 light dots that were different from the others. They appeared to be new and unconventional. They were the heavenly mystery pillars that he had spent merit points to invite from the Cloud River battlefield. One was in the range of the original hunting ground. One was in the spirit land of Return to Heaven Valley. He chose the one in the spirit land of Return to Heaven Valley, and when his vision changed, he had already entered the Cloud River battlefield. "I'm back!" Lu Yi exclaimed as he walked out of the wooden house. No one came to welcome him, and only the demon wolves that were walking around glanced at him. Lu Yi didn't mind. In the Cloud River battle, the people of Return to Heaven Valley had all obtained different numbers of golden spirit lots, and now they were probably cultivating and increasing their cultivation. Hoopa jumped down from his shoulder, and he flashed out. To the present Lu Yi, there was actually not much difference between cultivating in the 9 states or the Cloud River battlefield. However, at Return to Heaven Valley, the spirit chi of heaven and earth was dense, and the efficiency of cultivation was naturally higher. Moreover, 4th senior brother and the others were all here, and it would be more lively. If he stayed in the 9 states, he would be the only one among his peers. Even if he could go and talk to 2nd senior sister, he would seem lonely and lonely. Therefore, when the 1-month deadline was up, He chose to return to Heaven Valley. Beixian Sword Sect of the War State. As the current sword's son, Mu Qingyun was naturally endowed with glory. He had been taken in as a disciple by the sword master since he was young and carefully taught. He was determined, easygoing, and open-minded, and had the demeanor of a disciple from a large sect. Originally, he went with the intention of getting first place in the Cloud River battle, but in the end, he only got third place. It was impossible to say that he wasn't disappointed. However, he had fought with Lan Zi and personally experienced the strength of that female cultivator. Therefore, even if he lost to her, Mu Qingyun had no complaints. His skills were not as good as hers, but he cultivated painstakingly. There would be a chance for him to fight again in the future. A person like him would not be defeated by a single loss. He just felt a little regretful. He didn't fight with Lu Ye. Lan Zi was already so strong. How strong was Lu Ye that Lan Zi didn't even want to challenge him? If possible, he still wanted to see Lu Ye's strength with his own eyes. However, he had been in the Cloud River realm for more than a year. It was not good to delay any longer. He sighed softly and took out a golden spiritual stick from his storage space. In the past few days, his injuries had healed. It was time for him to break through to the true lake realm and share the burden of the sect. However, just as he was about to crush the golden spiritual stick in his hand, he suddenly had a mysterious feeling. It was as if he would miss something if he broke through to the true lake realm now. This made Mu Qingyun feel strange. He was only a Cloud River realm cultivator. Because he was a sword cultivator, his mind was stronger. Although it was stronger than ordinary cultivators, it was far from being able to sense the book of the unknown. After pondering for a while, he got up and walked out of the secret room. Light soared into the sky, and soon he arrived in front of a cliff in the sect. On a protruding rock on the cliff, a figure sat upright like a sword. He didn't have any aura and was dressed very plainly. He looked like an ordinary person. However, this person was very famous in the entire 9 prefectures. He was the current sword master of the North Mystery Sword Sect, Mu Suifeng. He might not be the oldest in the Spirit Sea realm, nor was he the oldest in terms of experience. However, he was in the group of people with the most terrifying killing intent. No one dared to underestimate his killing intent. Mu Qingyun walked behind him and bowed respectfully. "What's the matter?" Mu Suifeng didn't turn back and only asked softly, "Master, I encountered a strange thing." "Tell me about it." Mu Suifeng knew his disciple's character. If he called it a strange thing, it must be unusual. Chapter 774. In front of the cliff in the Beixian Sword Sect, Mu Suifeng's tightly shut eyes slowly opened as Mu Qingyun spoke. A look of interest flashed across his eyes as if he had noticed something. "Master, this is very strange. I don't know what to do. Please tell me." Mu Qingyun said, "Sword cultivators follow their hearts. Since you can sense it, let nature take its course. Anyway, you're not in a hurry to reach the true lake realm." "I understand." After Mu Qingyun left, Mu Suifeng sat still. After a long time, he looked up at the sky with a deep gaze. At the same time, on Boundless Island, on a spiritual mountain near the ocean, Lan Zi, who was dressed in purple, held the golden spiritual stick in her hand. Her lips curled up, revealing a faint smile. She murmured, "Interesting." Without much hesitation, she put away the spiritual lot and stopped cultivating. Instead, she walked out of her bedroom and went straight to the Tianji Hall on Boundless Island. Compared to Mu Qingyun's confusion, she obviously realized something. In the spiritual land in Heaven Returning Valley, Lu Yi looked at Hua Hui. Not everyone was cultivating, so Hua Hui didn't have a brain. Therefore, Lu Yi quickly found her. Contrary to Lu Ye's expectations, Hua Ci directly took out 2 golden spirit sticks and handed them over to him. Search. Hua Hui got into the top 300 in the Cloud River battle. Although the reward wasn't very rich, she still got 2 golden spiritual lots. I said that my cultivation method is different from ordinary people. This thing is not very useful to me. It wasn't that it was completely useless. With the help of spirit sticks, spirit pills, or breathing in and out the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Wuxia could also raise her cultivation level using other cultivators' cultivation methods. However, the main purpose of her cultivation wasn't to improve her cultivation. At the same time, she could also strengthen her poison. That was her cultivation method. If she only improved her cultivation, there would be a day when her poison wouldn't work on her enemies. Take her now as an example. No Cloud River Realm cultivator would dare to attack her. Even some true Lake Realm cultivators with lower cultivation would be a threat. However, true Lake Realm cultivators with higher cultivation would be able to resist her. She did not have an effective countermeasure against the enemies of the Lake Realm. She did not have any effective countermeasure. She did not have a good countermeasure. She was a medical cultivator, so they couldn't let her fight the enemy head-on. Also, this isn't a gift to you. Just treat it as a reward. What reward? Lu Yi was puzzled. Escort me to a place tomorrow. Lu Yi gradually came to his senses. You want to hire me as your guard? Hua Xi's eyes curved into crescents. I just don't know if this bit of reward is enough to invite Cloud River's #1. Lu Yi couldn't help but sneer, casually replying, I'm afraid it's not enough. Then what should we do? Hua Xi's expression suddenly turned pitiful. Her voice was faint as she said, I don't have anything valuable on me. If there's really no other way, then I'll have to pay with my body. Lu Yi looked around with a guilty conscience, fearing that Yi might hear her. Only when she found that Yi was not nearby did she feel relieved. He reprimanded Hua Xi and said, You are such a woman, you are always so careless with your words. If you are like this, be careful, I will follow you. Hua Sui's expression was even more aggrieved. It's not like I haven't hurt you before. She still remembered the slap in Tianji Gao Jinyan's room. Lu Yi did not want to continue the conversation. Escorting you is not a problem. You can keep this spirit stick for yourself. Who knows when you will need it? You don't have to give it to me. She turned around and walked a few steps before she remembered. You want to go? 5 Poison Pool. The Spirit Stream battlefield had a forbidden area like the 10,000 Poison Forest, which was covered in poisonous fog, so the Cloud River battlefield naturally had a similar forbidden area. Such places were always fraught with danger, and even the 8th and 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivators would not easily set foot in them. But for Hua Xi, there was no better cultivation environment in this world than such a place. She cultivated in Returning Heaven Valley's spirit land mainly by refining the poison pills that Lu Yi gave her. She did not absorb any world energy, so her cultivation progress was not great. But with the inheritance she obtained, as long as there was a suitable cultivation environment, she would be able to grow rapidly in a short time. When she first entered the Cloud River battlefield, she wanted to find a place similar to the Forest of 1,000 Poisons. However, before she could do so, she heard from Li Baxian that Sueye was trapped in the map. She immediately set off to rescue him. After that, she was brought to Returning Heaven Valley's Shell Land by Wei Yi and participated in the Cloud River battle. During this time, she bought a 10-point map from the Tianji treasure house and used it to find a suitable place for her cultivation. Finally, she found a place like 5 Poison Ba Waterfall. Now that the Cloud River battle was over, it was time to set off. The journey was not short. She would be safer if Lu Yi escorted her there, so she could avoid any unexpected accidents along the way. After discussing this matter with Hua Xi, Lu Yi took out the 10-point map to search for the location of the 5 Poison Pool. Soon she found something. On the 10-point map, the 3 words 5 Poison Pool appeared pitch black and deep, giving people a sense of unease. Anyone who saw it would know that this was a dangerous place that could not be easily trespassed. Just as she was about to put away the 10-point map, Lu Yi seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly glanced along the route from Returning Heaven Valley to the 5 Poison Pool. A moment later, he put away the 10-point map and headed in the direction of the Tianji Pillar. Li Baxian, Feng Yu, and Giant Armor were all in closed-door cultivation, so it was not good to rashly disturb them. Fortunately, cultivators had a high frequency of ketogenic, allergic, and acidic substances, so there was no need to specially inform them when the 5-flower charm test opened. When Yuan Tu and the others came out of closed-door cultivation and could not find her, they would definitely send a message to ask. It would not be too late to explain it to them then. When the night was silent and the sky was bright, Lu Yi packed up and walked out of his wooden house with Cheng Pe. At the same time, the door next door was pushed open. "Let's go." Lu Yi called out and took out his spirit boat. Hua Si unceremoniously stepped on it and sat down diagonally. Lu Yi glared at her and could only follow. As he channeled his spiritual energy, the spirit boat soared into the sky. Along the way, his nose was filled with Hua Si's unique body fragrance. He flashed out and was chatting with Hua Si. Along the way, her bell-like laughter scattered. When his cultivation was not high, he had to be careful when flying on the cloudy river battlefield. He could not fly too high. If he flew too high, he would not be able to escape if he encountered an unstoppable expert. He could not fly too low either. If he flew too low, he would most likely be ambushed from the ground. A height of around 100 copper coins was just right. Thinking back to when he first entered the cloudy net battlefield and his various experiences and tricks, Shu Yi could not help but curse. Now, he naturally did not need to care about these things. He could fly however he wanted and as high as he wanted. If there was any trouble, the saber in his hand would teach them a lesson. In the blink of an eye, his cultivation was about to reach the limit that the cloudy river battlefield could accommodate. Looking back, he did not seem to have been in the cloudy river battlefield for long. Compared to the time he spent cultivating in the spirit stream battlefield, it was even shorter. Once he reached the true lake stage, it would be time to leave the cloudy river battlefield. When that time came, what would welcome him would be the vast stage of the 9 continents. As his cultivation increased, his speed on the cloudy river battlefield also increased. In just a day he left Taimang Mountain. At night, he casually found a place to rest in the wilderness and set up an alert and defensive array. He did not have to worry about being ambushed. On the second day, he set off again. Hua Si quickly realized that something was wrong. Lu Yi, is the direction wrong? The general direction was not wrong, but the angle of the flight seemed to be flat and there was a problem with the shoes. If this could jigging continued to fly, he would definitely bend to the west where Wu Bo Piao was. That was right. Huey agreed. I will go and solve some personal problems first. Hua Si understood and observed a moment of silence for the unknown enemy. She did not ask who Lu Yi was looking for trouble with. According to what she knew, Lu Yi had enemies everywhere in the spirit stream battlefield. When he came to the cloudy river battlefield, it seemed like he was also an enemy. She just did not know who was so unlucky to have him directly go to their door like this. Lu Yi was not someone who did not hold grudges, but he had too many enemies. It was useless to remember the latest update on www.xiaxhuaxi.com. Moreover, the situation in the cloudy river battlefield was not the same as the spirit stream battlefield. Most of the cultivators here did not have a fixed residence. Even if they wanted to find someone for revenge, they might not have the chance to meet. But there was only one exception. That was a cultivator who owned a spiritual land. Cultivators who owned a spiritual land could not casually move disciples under normal circumstances, unless they were willing to bear the consequences of the spiritual land's grade falling. This was because something like a spring spirit, once it was placed, if one wanted to take it out again, the quality would inevitably fall by a solid level. On the cloudy river battlefield, there were many cultivators who participated in the encirclement and suppression of Lu Yi, but there was only one place where he could take revenge. The holy character's spirit extinction. 5 was that the high character test was not cut and selected by the high character calculation mountain. According to the photo agency, he did not want to go to the Holy Eve's spiritual land, but yesterday. It could barely be considered the route he was taking this time. The heavenly investigation report was very accurate. When they were determining the route, they inadvertently alerted them to the holy character spirit land. It could only be said that they were somewhat unlucky. In the distance, the Holy Eve's spiritual land was in sight. Generally speaking, the radius of 100 miles around such a large-scale spiritual land was almost equivalent to the mountain gate of a sect. If any cultivator dared to approach it, it would be a provocation. Looking at the entire cloudy river battlefield, the Holy Eve's spiritual land strength was considered strong. The Holy Flame sect and the Huanyu sect jointly built this spiritual land. It was passed down generation after generation, and it had helped the two sects breed many elite disciples. Such a large-scale spiritual land could be said to be one of the foundations of the two sections. In the spiritual land, there were 300 cultivators. Even if it was attacked, it would not be defeated in a short period of time. And as long as it was delayed for a while, the two sects would naturally send reinforcements from various parts of the Cloudy River battlefield or from their own sections. Therefore, after so many years, even if the Grand Heaven Alliance knew that this spiritual land was jointly built by the two sects, no one had any thoughts about it. However, at this time today, an uninvited guest descended from the sky and shook the protective formation that enveloped the spiritual land. Chapter 775. A large spirit land that could accommodate 200 to 300 people was not easy to achieve. This was the result of generations of hard work by Sacred Flame sect and Huanyu sect. It was also an important foundation for the two sects in the Cloud River battlefield. In the two sects, not all Cloud River realm cultivators were qualified to enter the spirit land. The number of Cloud River tier cultivators in each generation of the two great sects varied from a few thousand to a few thousand. A single spiritual land was unable to accommodate all of them. Thus, even though the Holy Eve's spiritual land had suffered heavy casualties half a year ago, they were now able to replenish their numbers. Huoliao Yuan, who was originally in charge of this place, died in returning Heaven Valley. The Fire sect sent a Cloud River Realm 9th Order cultivator named Wang Sun to take over Huoliao Yuan's position. He and Huanyu sect's Tu Guanxiong were in charge of this place. At this moment, the two of them were in the middle of a meeting, and the topic of their discussion was shockingly related to Lu Yi. 4 Cloud River Realm cultivators, the Holy Eve's spirit land was not too far away from returning Heaven Valley. This was also why the Holy Eve's spirit land fought for returning Heaven Valley. Returning Heaven Valley was the reason why they changed their minds. Fa Ko Shi's thoughts were one aspect, while returning Heaven Valley's spirit land was another aspect. Originally, Huoliao Yuan thought that killing Lu Yi and taking back the spring spirit of the returning Heaven Valley's spirit land could be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Who would have thought that he would die before his ambition was realized? The cultivators from the two sects that he brought out were almost completely wiped out. Chu Yin and Zhou Pei, who were sent by Sacred Flame sect to kill Lu Yi, spent a lot of time and effort. Not only did they not succeed, but they were also killed by Lu Yi. What's more, Lu Yi, with his Cloud River Realm 8th Order cultivation, was aiming for first place in the Cloud River battle. All of this pointed to one thing. Lu Yi was a great enemy. In the past, they were the ones who went to find trouble with him. Now that Lu Yi had truly grown up, who knew if he would take revenge? If it was an ordinary person, they would not care about a large spirit land. Not to mention the number of people here, even the protective array that enveloped the spirit land could not be broken easily. The Holy Eve's spirit land could exist for so many years, so they naturally had the confidence. But who was Lu Yi? Not only was he extremely powerful, but his attainments in the art of formations were also unimaginable. Back at the Spirit Stream battlefield, the defensive formations of the various sects and clans in the core region were like nothing to him. The defensive formations of the Holy Eve's spiritual land might not have been able to stop him. Once he killed his way into the spirit land, who knew how many disciples of the two sects would be killed? If such a powerful enemy really came to cause trouble, how would the cultivators of the two sects resist? This gave Tu Guanxiong and Wang Bei a headache. Before they could come up with a plan, they heard a deafening explosion. The entire spiritual land seemed to shake violently. What? Tu Guanxiong raised his eyebrows and stood up abruptly. Wang Sun's spirit sects Lu heard. In the next moment, a blood-curdling scream entered his ears. It was short and hurried. It was clearly the sound of someone dying. Tu Guanxiong immediately reacted. Immediately after, the shouts outside entered his ears, causing his face to twitch violently. Lu Yi is here. It's Lu Yi. Fuck. Ming. In an instant, the originally calm spirit land was like a pot of boiling oil that was sprinkled with salt. Figures rushed out of their respective secluded areas in panic. Tu Guanxiong and Wang Qi also came out in a flash. What they saw shocked them greatly. The protective array of the spirit land was still in operation. A visible spirit energy light screen enveloped the spirit land. Logically speaking, if this light screen was not broken, no one would be able to kill their way into the spirit land. However, at this moment, an unfamiliar figure appeared in the spiritual land. Fiery red spiritual power surged, making him look as if he was burning. He held a pitch-black long saber in his hand, and the long saber was also covered with scorching spiritual power. His figure was like thunder. He ran through the spirit land like lightning. Wherever he passed, there was a rain of blood. Not only that, there were 3 streams of light from Imperial equipment. Under his precise control, they constantly attacked the cultivators in the spirit land. No one could block his saber. No one could even block the power of his Imperial equipment. In a short period of time, the spirit land had lost 20 to 30 people. How can he be so fast? Tu Guanxiong was shocked. He and Wang Jun rushed out when they heard the commotion. How long had it been? Lu Yi had already killed his way in. He didn't even say a word before killing everyone. At this moment, the spirit land of the holy word was defenseless. How could the scattered cultivators be a match for Lu Yi? Lu Yi, you're courting death. Wang Sun roared and rushed towards Lu Yi. Senior brother Wang. Tu Guanxiong cried out. He couldn't stop Wang Sun at all. He could only grit his teeth and rush out. Then he saw an extremely terrifying scene. Wang Sun, who had rushed out aggressively, was sent flying by Lu Yi's saber. His spirit energy was in chaos and blood splattered everywhere. If Tu Guanxiong hadn't caught him in time, he would have been in an even worse state. He knew that Lu Yi was very strong now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to kill Xia Liang, Chu Yun, and Zhou Pei. But knowing was one thing. Before witnessing it with his own eyes, he didn't have a clear understanding of how strong he was. Until now. Wang Sun was also a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator. In the previous Cloud River competition, he didn't make it into the top 100, but he was still in the top 300. Among the 9 states' Cloud River realm cultivators, he could be considered one of the best. Tu Guanxiong didn't think he was a match for him. But such a top cultivator was sent flying by Lu Yi with a casual slash of his saber. Moreover, he suffered injuries that were neither light nor heavy. How could an 8th Order Cloud River realm cultivator be so strong? Or was it the spirit artifact in his hand? Tu Guanjin's eyesight wasn't bad. He had already noticed that the mountain plate saber in Lu Yi's hand was at the level of a spirit artifact. But even so, Wang Sun shouldn't be so weak. While he was lost in thought, more than 10 people were killed. Fortunately, the cultivators who were in seclusion had already rushed out. They didn't need any instructions. Facing this enemy who had suddenly broken into their spirit land, they all attacked. In a split second, colorful rays of light, wrapped in the E-energy of spells and weapons, shuttled back and forth in the spiritual land, bustling with noise and excitement. Facing such a concentrated attack, no matter how fast Lu Yi was or how agile he was, he couldn't completely avoid it. The defensive spirit inscriptions on his body continued to shatter and reform, but he was still covered in wounds. He didn't care. Just like when he fought against Xia Liang, he rushed to where there were the most people. The 3 magic table-level Imperial tools played a very big role in this battle. With Lu Yi's generous use of spiritual power, the speed and destructive power of the Imperial tools were not something that an ordinary Cloud River tier cultivator could withstand. As the streaks of light shot through the air, blood splattered everywhere, and severed limbs flew everywhere. Tu Guanxiong was horrified to find that if this situation continued, regardless of whether Lu Yi died or not, the disciples of the 2 sects in the spirit land would be slaughtered in a short time. Quickly return to the main sects and ask for reinforcements. Tu Guanxiong ordered through gritted teeth. At the same time, he and Wang Jun rushed toward Lu. With the strength that Lu Yi had displayed, cultivators below the 9th Order couldn't block a single slash of his saber. Only he and Wang Qi could hold him back for a while. Before the reinforcements of the two sects arrived, they had to hold him back no matter what. Tu Guanxiong thought so in his heart, but when he really faced him head-on, he realized that he was too naive. Lu Yi's terrifying strength, wild and violent aura, and indescribable pressure. With just one slash of his saber, he was sent flying. Wang Jun was even more miserable. He was injured just now, and now one of his arms was cut off. No matter how tenacious he was in so much pain that his face twitched. How could he block such an enemy? When he, a ninth-order Mist Realm cultivator, faced him, it was like a child facing an adult. The extremely long 20 breaths felt like 20 years. The casualties on the side of the Holy Eve's spiritual land had already exceeded 100. Almost at every moment, there were disciples predicting the outcome of the battle. Those who were still alive all had eyes filled with fear and shock, and the might of their attacks had also become timid. Tu Guanxiong deeply understood that when a person was strong to a certain extent, the number of people was meaningless. There were indeed many disciples alive on the Spirit Land side, but in this short period of time, their courage had been shattered. No one had the courage to face Lu Yi head-on. With such low morale, it was only a matter of time before they were all killed. Although he and Wang Qi joined forces to hold back Lu Yi again, it didn't have any effect. Wang Sun was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He himself was also hit by Lu Yi's saber, and there was a huge wound on his abdomen. This was the result of Lu Yi not deliberately targeting them. The other party seemed to have just casually slashed at them. Disaster. This was definitely the biggest disaster since the establishment of the Holy Word Spirit Land. If they couldn't get through this today, the Holy Eve's Spirit Land would no longer exist on the Cloud River battlefield in the future. The two sects would also lose their foundation here. If that really happened, it would be a huge blow to the two sections. Fortunately, at this moment, several powerful auras suddenly appeared in the Heaven's Secret Hall where the Heaven's Secret Pillars were placed. More auras were emerging from the Heaven's Secret Hall. Tu Guanxiong's face lit up. He knew that the reinforcements of the two sects had arrived. It had only been a few dozen breaths since he sent people back to the main sect to ask for help. The reaction speed of the two sects could be said to be fast. However, just as joy appeared on his face, it turned into boundless panic. Because Lu Yi, who was slaughtering everyone in the Spirit Land like a god of death, suddenly turned his head to look in the direction of the Heaven's Secret Hall. Then he turned into a fiery red stream of light, wrapped in a violent aura, and directly crashed into the Heaven's Secret Hall. Tu Guanxiong was instantly dumbfounded. Then, a burst of screams and cries came from the Heaven's Secret Hall, as well as the roars of roaring beasts. As the spiritual energy surged, the auras were annihilated like candles being blown out. Tu Guanxiong's eyes trembled violently. He couldn't help but think of a scene that he couldn't accept. Although he didn't see it with his own eyes, he felt that it was probably what was happening. Chapter 776. Run. While Tu Guanjin was in a daze, Wang Espio's empty voice came from beside him. He looked at him in a daze. There was no reaction for a moment. Run! Wang Espio shouted with all his strength. Tu Guanxiong came back to his senses and hurriedly shouted, "E!" Many panicked and uneasy cultivators of the spiritual land obeyed the order. They all urged their bodies and fled in all directions. They had lost the courage to fight against Lu Yi. Tu Guanxiong also hurriedly grabbed the seriously injured Wang Qi and urged his spiritual power. He soared into the sky. After flying for a short distance, there was a rumbling sound behind him, as if something had collapsed. He looked back and saw the original location of the spiritual land's Tianji Hall. Smoke and dust billowed, and the entire Tianji Hall was in ruins. The Tianji Hall here was built by a group of Cloud River realm cultivators. It couldn't be compared to the Tianji Hall of the 9 prefectures. It couldn't withstand the aftermath of the battle at all. In the dust, a figure slowly walked out, holding a long blade as black as ink in his hand. Who else could it be but Lu Yi? At this moment, the upper half of Lu Yi's clothes had been torn off, revealing his strong upper body. Large and small wounds were densely packed, making him look like he had been soaked in a pool of blood. He looked like a ruthless wolf, but the fierceness of his aura made people not dare to look directly at him. In the collapsed ruins behind him, broken corpses were laid out one after another. There were at least 20 of them. Tu Guanxiong saw many familiar figures. Boundless grief surged out from his heart. Tu Guanxiong spat out a mouthful of blood. There was only one word echoing in his mind. Invincible. One with such strength, there was no one in the Cloud River realm who could pose any threat to him. And what made him feel happy was that Lu Ye didn't seem to have the intention to kill them all. They were more than 10 miles away. She only glanced at him from afar and then ignored him. Lu Yi indeed didn't want to kill them all. The main reason was that it wasn't too realistic. There were at least 100 cultivators from the two sects who had escaped, and they were scattered in all directions. He was alone. How could he chase them all? He might as well ignore them. This time, killing the enemy was secondary to him. Their main target was the Holy Eve's spiritual land itself. Previously, the Prairie Fire had the intention to attack the Huitian Valley and him. Who would have thought that in just a few months, they would bring such a disaster to the Holy Eve's spiritual land? I wonder how he would feel if he knew about this in the underworld. In front of the damaged Tianji Palace, Lu Yemin frowned and pondered. Should he go to the Tianji treasure trove and look for a set of protective treasured clothes? Otherwise, after such a great battle, his clothes were ragged. It was also an eyesore. It was the same when he killed Xia Liang and the others, and it was the same this time. But after thinking about it carefully, he decided to make a bamboo hat. Treasured clothes were much more important than spirit artifacts that had similar defensive abilities. If the quality was poor, it would be useless to him now. He would rather use high-quality ones. The price was also expensive. If it was damaged, it would be troublesome to repair. The most important point: during the battle, he still had to use his spiritual power to activate the protective power of the treasured clothes. To a weapon cultivator, being untitled was not desirable. Therefore, in the cultivation world of the 9 regions, the statues generally did not wear treasured clothes. It was not that he could not bear to, but for all weapon cultivators, offense was the best defense. Instead of using a portion of his spiritual power to activate the power of the treasured clothes, Lu Yi might as well construct the defensive spirit tattoos. Only Dharma cultivators with strong bodies would wear treasured clothes. But Lu Yi had killed so many Dharma cultivators that the treasured clothes they wore could only provide limited protection. Yi had already begun to clean up the battlefield. She was collecting the spoils of war. Hua Xi's voice came from outside the protective array. "Open the door." She had been staying outside during the previous battle. After the dust settled, the talisman slowly flew over. However, it was blocked by the intestinal defense array. Lu Yi walked over to her. He looked at the array nodes and threw out array flags. Soon Hua Xi was brought in. Hua Hui healed him. Her soft hands caressed Lu Ye's chest. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. "The vitality in your body is incredible." The vigorous vitality made Lu Ye's physique stronger, and his recovery ability increased greatly. Therefore, although he looked miserable on the surface, he was actually fine. If there was an enemy who was deceived by this appearance, they would definitely suffer a great loss. With the vitality in his body now, such injuries, even if without Hua Xi's help, would not even leave a scar after a day or two of recuperation. Even though it was not her first time experiencing it, Hua Cho was still amazed. "Just heal me, don't touch me." Lu Yi was tickled by her touch and could not help but glare at her. Hua Xi pursed her lips and chuckled. She did not tease him anymore. Soon, the healing was complete. Lu Yi went to the spirit spring and washed his body with its water. Then he changed into a clean set of clothes. Then he took out a small net-like object from his storage space. It was only the size of a palm. Hua Xi was suspicious. "What is this?" She had never seen such a spirit weapon. Spirit capturing net. "It's specially used to capture spring spirits," Lu Yi explained. Hua Xi understood. "So you came prepared?" Spirit lands had spirit springs, and there were spring spirits in the spirit springs. Moreover, spring spirits could be captured and plundered. Although Wuxia had not been in the Cloudy River battlefield for long, she still knew these common-sense things. This was also the reason why large spirit lands were born in the Cloudy River battlefield. Those large spirit lands were not naturally large spirit lands. Lu Yi had set out from Huitian Valley and came here directly. He had also brought something like the spirit capturing net. It was obvious that he had come prepared. As he spoke, Lu Yi threw the spirit capturing net into the spirit spring in front of him. However, he was still holding onto a long, thin line. No one in the 9 regions knew how to refine the spirit catching net. It was something unique to the Tianji treasure house. In essence, it was not a particularly powerful spiritual weapon, but it was endowed with special abilities by the Tianji treasure house. And such a spirit-capturing net was sold for 5,000 merit points in Tianji treasury. It was definitely not cheap. Lu Yi did not know how deep the spirit spring was. As he held onto the thin line in his hand, he had the illusion that he was fishing. The spirit-capturing net kept going deeper and deeper until it finally reached the bottom of the spirit spring. Soon, Lu Yi felt movement and hurriedly pulled the spirit-capturing net out. There were no twists and turns. After a while, the spirit-capturing net wrapped around a fat, silkworm-like thing appeared in Lu Ye's vision. He had obtained a spring spirit before, so he was not surprised. However, it was Hua Xi's first time seeing this thing. She could not help but feel curious. This is a spring spirit. As she spoke, she even poked it with her hand. The spring spirit seemed to shrink its body lazily. Lu Yi carefully examined the spring spirit in front of him. He did not see much difference between this spring spirit and the one he had obtained before. However, he knew that if he found another place to place this spring spirit, it would only be a B-grade spirit land. The Holy Eve spirit land was A-grade, but once the spring spirit was taken out, its quality would drop by 1 grade. As for the range of the spirit land, it would probably not change much. Of course, Lu Yi would not create another B-grade spirit land. The greatest use of the spring spirit in his hand was to bring it back to Return to Heaven Valley and place it in the spirit spring to expand the scale of the Return to Heaven Valley spirit land. As for how much it could expand, that was unknown. The Return to Heaven Valley spirit land was now only a small spirit land. Although the spirit energy of heaven and earth was rich, it could not accommodate many people. In the future, there would definitely be an endless stream of Jade Blood Sect disciples advancing to the Cloud River realm and stepping into the Cloud River battlefield. Leaving the Return to Heaven Valley Spirit Land here would at least allow the Jade Blood Sect disciples to not have to work so hard in the early stages. Lu Yi took out the reward from the hunting ground, the box containing the spring spirit. He placed the spring spirit in the spirit capturing net and kept it carefully. "Let's go!" Lu Yi called out and summoned his spirit boat again. He carried Hua Xi and flew in the direction of the 5 Poisons Pool. Behind him was a dilapidated spirit land. The smell of blood filled the air. Who would have thought that such a large spirit land that had been passed down for so many years could be broken through by someone with his own strength? Moreover, he had caused rivers of blood to flow in the spirit land. The cause of this matter was that Fire Prairie had previously led people to attack the Return to Heaven Valley Spirit Land. When the news from the Holy Eve Spirit Land spread, the name Sect Destroying Eve once again appeared in the minds of many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. Especially those from the Myriad Demon Ridge who had experienced the Dark Age when Lu Yi ruled the Spirit Stream battlefield, they all had a vague feeling. The scene of such a large battlefield being dominated by a single person was about to appear again. For a time, countless Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were terrified and uneasy. Lu Yi was so vengeful and powerful now. If they really bumped into him in the wild, they would not have a good ending. As a result, many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who had once found trouble with Lu Yi either returned to their sects in the 9 states or cultivated in seclusion in the Cloud River battlefield. They did not dare to go out easily. Even the atmosphere of the Cloud River battlefield was much more peaceful. At night, the moonlight was hazy and the bonfire danced. There were hidden array formations all around, providing warning and protection. Hua Xi and Yi were roasting meat by the bonfire. The sizzling sounds were constantly heard and the alluring aroma spread in all directions. Lu Yi was bare-chested and practicing his saber not far away. Recently, he had read the secret manual of the Tyrant Saber technique and learned something. Unfortunately, it was not suitable for him to enter the Mirage realm to practice in such an environment. He could only cultivate on his own. Suddenly, Lu Ye's movement stopped. It was not that he had learned something, but that the battlefield imprint suddenly had some strange reaction. It did not seem like someone had sent him a message. Lu Yi had never experienced such a reaction before. Out of curiosity, he raised his hand and tapped on the battlefield imprint. He immersed his mind to investigate. A sudden message exploded in his mind and turned into lines of words. Lu Yi focused his eyes and his expression began to change. This message was not sent to him by someone, but appeared in his battlefield imprint out of thin air. Lu Yi did not need to think to know who in this world could have such means. The content of the message inevitably made one's imagination run wild. Chapter 777. In the Cloudy River battlefield, there were many dangerous and forbidden grounds, and many of them were occupied by Overlord-level demon generals. For example, in the Taimang Mountains, the territory of the giant berserk ape, no cultivator dared to provoke it. However, there were also many places that were purely hostile. Even a Cloud River tier cultivator would find it difficult to survive in such a hostile environment. The Five Poisons pool was undoubtedly one of them. The environment inside was not much different from the forest of 10,000 poisons. There were countless poisonous creatures inside. These creatures breathed out all year round, causing the entire Five Poisons pool to be filled with a poisonous fog that could not be dispersed by wind. However, relatively speaking, the toxicity of the many poisonous creatures and fog in the Five Poisons pool was much more powerful than in the forest of 10,000 poisons. After all, one was a forbidden land in the Spirit Stream battlefield, while the other was a forbidden land in the Cloud River battlefield. There was still a difference in level. In this forbidden land, there were many kinds of poisonous spiders, poisonous centipedes, poisonous frogs, poisonous snakes, and poisonous scorpions. It was named after the Five Poisons. Although it had the word pool in it, it was not a small pool. If one looked down from above, it was a vast abyss of unknown depth. At a glance, one could not see the bottom of the Five Poisons pool at all. It was rumored that Overlord-level demon generals lived in it. However, no cultivator dared to approach such a dangerous place. Hence, no one could say for sure whether there were Overlord-level demon beasts here. Search. Lu Yi steered her spirit boat and hovered in the air 1,000 feet above the abyss. Looking down, she could see the poisonous fog churning below, as if some inexplicable vicious creature would emerge at any time. This place. Lu Yi glanced at Hua Ci casually. Great danger. Are you sure you want to cultivate here? However, Hua Ci's beautiful eyes lit up. Although she had found the existence of the Five Poisons pool on the map and deduced from its name that this place was suitable for her cultivation, she had never been here before and had not carefully inquired about the information of the Five Poisons pool. Now that she saw the environment with her own eyes, she was immediately sure that this was the place she had always dreamed of. To others, perhaps they would avoid it like the plague, but she was rushing like a flock of ducks. Of course, Hua Ci smiled. Taking a step forward, she jumped down from the spirit boat and landed directly below. Her clothes fluttered, and she was as beautiful as a fairy. Lu Yi put away the spirit boat and followed closely behind. At the same time, he immersed himself in observing the reaction of the talent tree. As soon as he entered the range of the Five Poison pool, the talent tree began to emit gray mist. The further down he went, the more intense the reaction of the talent tree became. From this, it could be seen how vile the environment here was. Compared to the forest of 10,000 poisons, it was at least 10 times worse. Hua Ci, on the other hand, had a joyful expression on her face. She looked left and right, and it didn't seem as if they had arrived at a dangerous place that would cause even Cloud River tier cultivators to shudder at the mere mention of it. Instead, it seemed as if they had arrived at a beautiful garden. This woman, Lu Yi looked at her enchanting back and slowly shook his head. If it wasn't for his talent tree, he probably wouldn't even have the qualifications to touch her. Wuxia did not fall into the depths. Although she could cultivate with poison, there was a limit to what she could endure. Due to the inheritance she had received, her perception of poison was sharper than anyone else's. Although she didn't have an innate skill tree, she could clearly sense that the deeper she went, the more intense the toxicity of the 5 poisons pool's environment became. The place she was currently in was the most suitable place for her to cultivate. Gracefully landing on a protruding rock wall, Wuxia took a deep breath and opened her arms, as if she wanted to embrace the entire 5 poisons pool. From now on, this is my territory, she announced happily. Unfortunately, the only audience was Lu Yi. She had once cultivated in the forest of 1,000 poisons. On the day she came out of seclusion, the forest of 1,000 poisons had completely become history. Lu Yi found it hard to imagine what it would be like when Wuxia came out of seclusion after cultivating in such a place. Would even the 5 poisons pool become a safe area? If that was the case, who knew how terrifying her cultivation would be? Do you want to think about it carefully? Lu Yi asked as he looked at the rock wall beside him. There was a small black snake the length of a chopstick. It was flicking its tongue and swimming rapidly. As the snake flicked its tongue, there was clearly poisonous gas coming out of the snake's mouth. It spat it out. What's there to think about? Wuxia replied with a smile. I can't stay here to cultivate with you. If there was enough fuel for the talent tree, it would be fine. To stay all the time, but living in such a ring all year round, under such circumstances, the fuel stored in the talent tree would definitely be consumed quickly. Even if he set up a formation here, he might not be able to block it. Block the corrosion of the highly toxic poison. Wuxia turned her head to look at him and pursed her lips into a smile. Yes, but I'm not a child. Cultivation is dry. There's no need for anyone else to accompany me. You've been here all this time. If it weren't for Hupe and Yi, wouldn't you be alone? If you can't even endure this loneliness, then how can you cultivate? Lu Yi nodded. You stay here. I'll go down and take a look. As he said this, he flashed down even lower. Wuxia. She didn't even have time to stop him. Since he couldn't stay here with Wuxia, then, at the very least, he could guarantee that there was nothing here that could threaten her life. Although he didn't say it explicitly, Wuxia didn't know what Lu Yi was thinking. Her heart immediately warmed. Soon, she felt the violent fluctuations of spiritual power coming from below. Occasionally, there was the sound of sabers, and some strange hissing and roaring. It seemed that Lu Yi was fighting with something. Lu Yi didn't return until the next day. Although his clothes were neat, Wuxia could tell that he had changed into new clothes. He came in front of Wuxia and casually tossed her a storage bag. He said somewhat reluctantly, "The rumors are wrong. There are no Overlord-level demon generals here." He had encountered many Cloud River Realm demon generals. There were many types, but there were no Overlord-level ones. He really wanted to find an Overlord-level demon general to test his strength. Wuxia took the storage bag and opened it. She saw that it was full of demon cores, many dark green snake gallbladders, and some poison sacs. Obviously, these were Lu Ye's gains this time. Just from these spoils of war, she knew that Lu Yi had killed a lot of poisonous creatures. This is... As Wuxia spoke, she suddenly took out a flower from her storage pouch. The flower was completely black and was about the size of a palm. At first glance, it looked like a sinister smiling face was imprinted on it. Ghost face devil snare? Wuxia was stunned and looked at Lu Yi. You found it below? Lu Yi nodded. There's a large area at the bottom of the lake. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be very poisonous. I brought one back for you to see. Is it useful? He came to this conclusion because there were many poisonous creatures living in that area, and those poisonous creatures seemed to like this flower very much. It's useful. It's very useful to me. Wuxia nodded affirmatively. Then I'll go and pick them all, Lu Yi said and was about to set off again. Wuxia grabbed his arm and shook her head. No need. You have to leave some for me. One day, I'll go down and pick them myself. Lu Yi thought for a moment and didn't insist. That's fine. In cultivation, one was afraid of not having a goal. Without a goal, there would be no motivation. If he left those ghost-faced devils' snare as Hua Xi's goal, she would probably work harder in cultivation. There were still many poisonous creatures in the 5 poisons pool that Lu Yi hadn't dealt with. However, those poisonous creatures didn't pose too much of a threat to the current Hua Xi. It's not good to stay here for too long. Hua Xi's tone was gentle. Then I'll be going. Lu Yi turned around and suddenly seemed to think of something. He said, "Oh, right. There's something else I want to give you." "What is it?" Hua Xi was curious. "Give me your hand." Hua Xi stretched out a small white hand, exquisite like a white jade carving. Lu Yi clenched his fist and seemed to be holding something in his hand. He gently placed it on her hand. Hua Xi's face was still full of expectation, but after feeling the furry and sharp touch on her palm, she suddenly felt as if she had been struck by lightning and her face turned snow-white. Looking up, she saw Lu Ye's face full of a smirk. Looking down again, when Lu Yi took his hand away, there was an 8-clawed spider crawling on his palm. At this moment, Lu Yi almost saw the fine hair on Hua Xi's delicate skin stand up. She retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted, flinging the spider away as if she had been greatly frightened. Following her instincts, she threw herself into Lu Ye's arms, wrapped in a fragrant wind, and hugged him tightly, her body trembling uncontrollably. The smirk on Lu Ye's face instantly froze. He never expected Hua Xi to have such a reaction. He still remembered that when Lu Yushan of the Thousand Secrets Pavilion took out the lifelike spider-like creation of Yanshi on the chess island during the Battle of Spirit Creek, Hua Xi was so scared that she smashed the spider with her palm. He just wanted to tease her before they parted, but it seemed that he had gone too far. With Lu Ye's current perception, he could clearly feel the soul-stirring curve and shape of her breasts. The tip of his nose was also filled with the intoxicating fragrance. Her hair was fluttering in the wind and tickling his face. From Hua Xi's chest came a violent and rapid heartbeat, as dense as the drumbeat of a war drum. She buried her head in his arms, as if only in this way could she find a trace of security. The guilt in Lu Ye's heart erupted like a tsunami. He gently patted Hua Xi's shoulder, opened his dry lips, and comforted her. But the flesh on his waist was suddenly pinched by Hua Xi and twisted. After venting her anger, Hua Xi finally retreated. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she stared at Lu Yi with wide eyes. Lu Yi was quite embarrassed. He avoided her gaze, scratched his head, and laughed dryly. "I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. I'll come to see you again when I have time." In the end, Lu Yi did not dare to look Hua Xi in the eye. Fortunately, he also knew that Hua Xi would not really be angry or hate him because of this matter. It was just that this time he seemed to have bullied her too much. He secretly decided that he would not do such a thing next time. It was a pity that he could not say goodbye properly. After parting this time, he did not know when they would meet again. Chapter 778. Lu Yi, you're too bad. It wasn't until they rushed out of the 5 poison pool that Yi came out of Hupo's body and looked at Lu Yi angrily, reprimanding him. "Are you a child? Still playing this kind of trick?" Lu Yi pulled his head back, somewhat annoyed by the reprimand. There was a faint worry in his heart. With such a weakness, how would Hua Xi survive in the 5 poison pool in the future? 5 poison pool. On the protruding wall, Hua Xi looked in the direction Lu Yi left. When the familiar figure could no longer be seen, her beautiful eyes curved like the moon. "Let's see if you dare next time." There was a faint smugness in her eyes. There was an angry rustling sound at her feet, but the poisonous spider she had thrown away earlier had crawled back. Hua Xi bent down and stretched out her jade hand, allowing the poisonous spider to climb onto her palm. Her expression was indifferent. Where was the slightest bit of fear? She even stretched out her other hand and stroked the spider's back a few times, until Lu Yi left the 5 poison pool for half a day, and after confirming that he was far away, Hua Xi took out her flying spirit tool and flew in a certain direction following some kind of feeling. She didn't know what this feeling was, but it was very real and couldn't be ignored. Moreover, there was a faint warning in her heart, but she couldn't say it out loud. So on the way to the 5-poison pool, even if she repeatedly wanted to ask Lu Yi about it, she didn't dare to say it out loud. It was as if she really did, it would definitely lead to extremely bad consequences. So she could only wait for Lu Yi to send her to the 5-poison pool, and then wait for Lu Yi to leave before acting on her own. Fortunately, there was still time. In the air, Lu Yi flew on his spirit tool, recalling the information that suddenly appeared in his battlefield imprint 2 days ago. That information was not sent to him by someone. Instead, it had appeared in his battlefield imprint without any warning, allowing him to investigate and obtain it. The information showed that he had to rush to a certain place within 5 days. Why he had to go to this place, what was in this place, and what would happen after he went, Lu Yi didn't know, but he couldn't ignore it, because he knew that this sudden information was most likely sent to him by Heaven's Secret. Other than the unfathomable and omnipresent Heaven's Secret, who else could have such unfathomable means? When he received the news, he was escorting Wuxia to the 5 poisons pool. Since he had plenty of time, he decided to send Wuxia to the destination before setting off. Another day later, a spirit was in sight. Lu Yi recalled the contents of the message, then looked at the surrounding environment and confirmed that the spirit peak in front of him was his destination. He wasn't too wary as he headed straight for the spiritual peak. Before he even got close, Lu Ye's keen perception had already detected the faint aura of a living person on the mountain peak. He frowned and immediately put away the Panshan saber. Then he stuffed the amber into his spirit beast pouch and took out a mask to wear. He landed directly on the spirit peak. Sure enough, there was someone on the peak. It was a middle-aged man with a decent appearance. His clothes were embroidered with golden threads. At first glance, he didn't look like a cultivator. Instead, he looked like a rich man in the mortal world. People from the Tianji Business Alliance. Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat. He had been in and out of the Tianji Business Alliance many times and had interacted with many managers of the Business Alliance. Naturally, he recognized the unique style of the Business Alliance's clothing. Moreover, judging from the golden threads on the middle-aged man's clothes, his status in the Tianji Business Alliance might not be low. Greetings, fellow Taoist. The middle-aged man cupped his fists and bowed to Lu Yi. Without further ado, he threw a storage pouch over. These are fellow Taoist goods. Lu Yi raised his hand and caught the storage pouch, thinking to himself. Heaven's Secret had secretly guided him here just to exchange goods with the Tianji Business Alliance? What's inside? Lu Yi asked in a hoarse voice. The middle-aged man shook his head. I'm only responsible for delivering the goods. I don't know anything else, nor do I want to know. The goods have been delivered. Farewell. Saying so, he soared into the sky, not even willing to say another word to Lu Yi. Lu Ye's mood was complicated. What was going on? Looking in the direction that the middle-aged man from the Business Alliance left, Lu Yi looked down at the storage pouch in his hand. He was guided here by Heaven's Secret. Before he arrived, someone from the Tianji Business Alliance was already waiting here and handed this storage pouch to him. Furthermore, he did not even ask about his name and background when they met. It was as though he was certain that he was the person he was waiting for and tossed the so-called goods over. Wasn't he afraid that he would give it to the wrong person? Or was he secretly guided by Heaven's Secret as well? Lu Yi could not figure it out. What he was more curious about was what was inside the storage pouch. The storage pouch was locked with restrictions. However, that was naturally not a problem for Lu Yi. He broke it with a flick of his finger and reached in, taking out the items inside. The 4 crystal-like items were not big and were only 5 inches long. The crystals were not the main point. The main point was what was sealed within them. Looking at the items sealed within the crystals, Lu Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. Why does this look like? After flipping it around for a long time, he was finally certain that he was right. Heaven's Secret Pillars. The items sealed within the 4 crystals were Heaven's Secret Pillars. However, unlike the Heaven's Secret Pillars that Lu Yi knew, the Heaven's Secret Pillars sealed within the 4 crystals were not only small in size, but there were also many mysterious dark golden patterns on the surface of the Heaven's Secret Pillars. They seemed to be more complex and mysterious than normal heaven's secret pillars. Lu Yi had never known that the heaven's secret pillars could be shrunk to such an extent. It seemed that it was the work of the crystals. He did not know what the crystals were. The heaven's secret pillars were sealed within them without leaking any aura. They were even made pocket-sized. Things were getting strange. He was guided here, and the people from the Tianji Business Alliance had given him these items. What was next? Just as he was filled with doubts, there was a sudden movement from the battlefield imprint. This time, it was not a strange movement. Someone was sending him a message. Lu Yi hurriedly checked and found that it was from his fourth senior brother. His fourth senior brother had been cultivating in seclusion. He should have come out by now. Since he could not find Lu Yi and Hua Ci, he came to ask about them. Lu Yi replied and told him that Hua Ci needed to go to the 5 Poisons pool to cultivate and that he would escort her. I see. Be careful, little junior brother. Tell Giant Armor to come back as soon as possible. The wolf pack has been surrounding me. They probably want to know where Giant Armor went. Lu Yi could not help but be shocked. Giant Armor is not cultivating? His fourth senior brother was also confused. Giant Armor is not with you? I'll send him a message and ask. Lu Yi frowned. He and Hua Ci had left the spiritual land because of some business. Why had Giant Armor run away without a word? This big guy had always been the kind of person who preferred peace and quiet. He had been cultivating in Huitian Valley's spiritual land for such a long time. He had only gone out with his fourth senior brother and the others once. It did not make sense for him to run away without even saying goodbye. Lu Yi was slightly worried. Had something happened to Giant Armor? But Giant Armor did not know many people. What could have happened? He found Giant Armor's imprint and sent a message to ask about the situation. After waiting for a long time, there was finally a reply. Too much peace and quiet. I came out for a walk. Who are you? Lu Yi was shocked. Was this a message that Giant Armor could reply to? He carefully confirmed that it was indeed Giant Armor's imprint. Every cultivator in the 9 provinces had a battlefield imprint. Moreover, it was unique and could not be impersonated by others. Lu Yi found it hard to imagine that Giant Armor, who was so taciturn, could say something like, too much peace and quiet. Giant Armor had changed. After chatting with Giant Armor for a while and confirming that he had not encountered any danger and had really just come out for a walk, Lu Yi did not say anything else. Somewhere in the Cloud River battlefield, high in the sky, Giant Armor ended his message with Lu Yi with a guilty expression. He scratched his head with his large hand and sighed heavily. If possible, it was impossible for him to hide anything from Lu Yi. But every time he wanted to tell the truth, there would always be a sense of danger in the unseen world. He could not say what was on his mind. As a last resort, he could only make up a random reason. This was also the reason why he left without saying goodbye to Li Baxian and the others. He was not a person who could lie. If he really said goodbye in front of Li Baxian, he would definitely be able to see through it. He flew through the air on his flying tool. Ing Wuji was excited. As a core disciple of Sun Luo Hall, he had an extraordinary background and outstanding talent. Moreover, as a ghost cultivator, his temperament was naturally not bad. It could be said that there were not many things in this world that could make him excited. There must be one of them. The blessing of the heavens. The top 10 in the Cloud River battle for supremacy were all blessed by the heavens to varying degrees. Coming from a top sect like Sun Luo Hall, he had been carefully taught by the sect's experts since young. He naturally knew what it meant to be blessed by the heavens. Unfortunately, although ghost cultivators were a sect that could naturally kill enemies above their level, there was only one bad thing about them. In a situation like the Cloud River battle for supremacy, they could not gain any advantage. When ghost cultivators killed people, the victims often did not know that they were being targeted. Ghost cultivators could use their methods to their heart's content. However, in the Cloud River battle for supremacy, his opponents knew of his existence and were always on guard. It was not so easy for him to succeed. Therefore, even if his strength was not bad, he could only get 16th place in the end. In the entire Cloud River battle for supremacy, he was the strongest ghost cultivator in the Cloud River battle for supremacy. This kind of ranking naturally had no fate with the blessing of the heavens. Wuxia had originally planned to peacefully enter the Cloud River, but suddenly he vaguely felt a trace of guidance from the heavens. He impatiently stepped into the Cloud River battlefield, following the feeling in his heart and flying forward. He did not know what was waiting for him because he could not even tell his own master about it. Could this be the legendary blessing of the heavens? Then what kind of shocking treasure was in front of him? Or was it a shocking opportunity? Wuxia continued to move forward amidst his excitement and apprehension. Until a certain moment he suddenly stopped. For no reason at all, he felt that the undulating mountain range in front of him was his destination this time. As for where it was exactly, he needed to go deeper to understand it. Chapter 779. Wuxia's personality was undoubtedly extremely cautious, so even if he had come here by following his instincts, he was always on guard. As soon as he entered the forest, he activated the secret technique of the ghost cultivators and concealed his figure and aura. Then he silently moved forward. Although his speed was much slower, it was safer. If he encountered any danger, he could hide in time. After a full day, he arrived at a spirit peak. Looking around, Wuxia frowned. There was someone. On the peak, a figure was sitting cross-legged on a flat rock, like a stubborn rock. The other party didn't move at all, and the spirit energy around him was not obvious, so Wuxia couldn't determine his cultivation. But in the entire Cloud River battlefield, there were only a few people who could make him wary, so even if he saw him, Wuxia was only slightly vigilant. Zero didn't pay much attention. In the text, there was a person here who seemed to be meditating. Could it be that after he killed this person, he would obtain some unexpected benefits? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Otherwise, there was no reason for him to follow his instincts and come here, only to meet this person. As the strongest ghost cultivator in the Cloud River realm, ambushing was his specialty. This was Wuxia's specialty. He stealthily crept closer to that side. He was confident that as long as the L-flat medicine ball was within range, he would be able to kill the other top T in the Cloud River battle ranking list. But just as he moved, his body suddenly stopped. Looking up, he saw a big U1 rushing over with a shocking aura. River 9 Cloud Realm. Furthermore, judging from the spirit energy fluctuations coming from the newcomer, it didn't seem to be a single 9th order River Realm cultivator. What was going on? Wuxia frowned. This was the wilderness, and there weren't any special treasures. Even if a cultivator passed by, they would quickly leave. If he hadn't followed his instincts, he wouldn't have come here. But first, there was a person sitting cross-legged here, and now there was another one. Wuxia couldn't help but be on guard. Just as he was thinking about this, the person who had arrived had already landed on the peak of the mountain. The light receded, revealing a slender figure. Dressed in purple, her features were picturesque, and she had a heroic spirit. This woman. Looking at the person's clothes and face, Wuxia's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't because he was surprised by her beauty, but because he recognized this woman. There were many rising stars in the Myriad Demon's Ridge in recent years, but the most famous one with the greatest potential was undoubtedly Lan Zi from the Boundless Island. It was said that this woman was a talent that had been unearthed from a small rank 8 sect on Boundless Island. Her background was rather legendary. Back when she was at the Spirit Stream realm, she was hailed by the Myriad Demon Ridge as someone who could contend with Lu Yi. Unfortunately, her defeat in the Spirit Stream list battle had caused Lan Zi to go into seclusion. There hadn't been any news from her for more than a year, which caused many of the Myriad Devil Ridge's older generation experts to wring their hands and sigh. They thought that her cultivation base wasn't high enough, and that she had been defeated by Lu Yi. But who would have thought that during the Cloud River competition, this woman would appear out of nowhere and take second place, second only to Lu Yi. Only now did the Myriad Demon Ridge realize that Lan Zi's silence wasn't because he was discouraged. Instead, he was conserving his energy. Although he still couldn't defeat Lu Yi, being second to Yun he was already an incredible feat. Why is this woman here? Wuxia's mind was in a mess. He wasn't a fool. With his extraordinary background, he was destined to know some information that ordinary cultivators wouldn't have access to. At this moment, he vaguely felt that he had been involved in some serious trouble. He had thought that this was his opportunity, but now it seemed that, on the peak, the moment Lan Zi revealed herself, she saw the figure sitting cross-legged on the rock. She didn't say anything. She directly took out her twin sabers. She didn't seem to move, but her body was like a butterfly as she approached the person on the rock. Her twin sabers crisscrossed and slashed down. A fiery red light flashed, and a clanging sound was heard. Violent spiritual power exploded, and Lan Zi's body was sent flying for dozens of feet before she could stabilize herself. She didn't attack again. She just looked at the figure in front of her with annoyance and helplessness. She gritted her teeth and said, "I knew you were involved." Wuxia knew a lot of information that ordinary cultivators couldn't, but Lan Zi knew more than him. On the way here, following that trace of feeling, she had guessed some things. If she, the second in Cloud River, was involved, then the first in Cloud River would definitely be involved. In other words, it was very likely that she would meet Lu Ye on this trip. If it was possible, she really didn't want to come. However, that trace of feeling was so clear and real. No matter how unwilling she was, she had to come. In the 9 states, no one could ignore the guidance of heaven's secrets. Therefore she could only come. As expected, she saw a familiar figure and a familiar face. Who else could it be other than Lu Ye? Who else could it be? During the Cloud River struggle, she had lost twice. She couldn't help but think that before she became powerful, she would never see this person again. However, things didn't go as she wished. She had to see him even if she didn't want to. Although she wasn't Lu Ye's match, she wasn't afraid. It was still very difficult for Lu Ye to kill her. Moreover, she had come here by sensing heaven's secrets. Under heaven's secrets interference, Lu Ye couldn't really kill her. Therefore, she had no fear in her probing. Lan Zi's sudden arrival shocked Lu Ye. When the killing intent in his heart rose, an inexplicable throbbing surged out, as if it was dispelling his killing intent. It was as if there was an invisible force that didn't want him to fight to the death with Lan Zi. Wuxia's eyes almost popped out. When he suddenly saw someone here, he didn't think too much. However, when he saw that person suddenly slash out with his blade, how could he not recognize him? It was Lu Ye, the person that he was extremely wary of. No wonder the back view was so familiar. It was this person. Wuxia was furious. What bullshit heaven's secrets? It was fine that he didn't make it into the top 10 and wasn't favored. However, there was no reason for him to come all the way here to die, right? Was he so unfavored by heaven's secrets? Luckily, Lan Zi appeared in time. Otherwise, if he had rushed over, he would have been a dead soul under Lu Ye's blade. This was not a place to stay for long. No matter what these two people were doing here, it wasn't something he could interfere with. It was better for him to hurry back to his sect and focus on advancing to the true lake realm. Just as he was thinking about this, he suddenly felt an aura lock onto his body. Wuxia instantly froze, his heart filled with bitterness. So, he had been discovered long ago. It wasn't strange. Lu Ye's mind was unbelievably strong. When he ambushed him at Huitian Valley, he had already noticed this. Now that this guy was even stronger than before, his mind would naturally be stronger as well. On the flat rock, Lu Ye sat cross-legged without moving. He held the mountain pan saber in his hand and looked at Lan Zi calmly. "Seems like you know something?" Lan Zi's words were vague, but to Lu Ye, it was hard not to make some connections. In terms of wealth, Ji Xingxiu wasn't the only old Tibetan. There was also a newly arrived ghost cultivator. That ghost cultivator gave him a very familiar feeling. It was Wuxia from Sanluo Hall. Not only that, he could also feel that someone else was secretly observing this place. It was just that his mind wasn't strong enough to sense it. There was no way to feel it clearly. What kind of person was PJT? These people had all arrived here in the past 2 days, but they had all chosen to hide. Lan Zi was the only one who greeted him warmly. "Then what do you know?" Lan Zi didn't answer. Instead, she threw the question back at him. Luya lowered his eyes slightly and raised the saber in his hand. If you like to chat like this, then we'll have a lot to talk about. Lan Zi frowned. She knew that she couldn't test Luya's patience. Although she wasn't afraid and was sure that Luya wouldn't really kill her, if he really did, she wouldn't have a good ending. She hurriedly said, I only came here by following my senses. I don't know the details. Under the mask, Luya looked at her deeply. Then he sheathed his saber and shouted, Since you're already here, why hide? Come out. As soon as he finished speaking, a hearty laugh rang out. Then, a person flew over and landed on the peak. He said loudly, Fellow Taoist Lu is right. Even an ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her parents-in-law. Since you're here, please show yourselves. Feng Ruli, don't speak if you don't know how to speak. What do you mean by an ugly daughter-in-law meeting her parents-in-law? As the voice rang out, a young man wearing a green robe with big sleeves and an otherworldly temperament answered the call. On the other side, as chi and blood surged, a burly man who was like a ferocious tiger out of its cage appeared. He looked around and grinned. It's really lively. All of you are familiar faces. Fellow Taoists, Yang Yuan greets you. Ing Wuji, who was hiding in the dark, felt his scalp tingle. First, it was the Jade Blood Sex Luya. Then, it was the Boundless Islands Lan Zi. Now, it was the Lingyun sex Feng Ruli. The young man in the green robe with an otherworldly temperament was the 10,000 Laws Pavilion's Lu Qing. As for Yang Yuan, who appeared last, he was a core disciple of the Shocking Sky Mountain. In the Cloud River battle for supremacy, the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 6th were all here. All of them were stronger than him. He originally thought that in this Cloud River battle for supremacy, other than a few people he could not kill, the rest could be ignored. However, the people in front of him were one of those few people. Just what had happened that caused the strongest people in Cloud River to gather here? Had they also come here by following that trace of feeling just like him? Suddenly, he felt a trace of excitement in his heart. Because as far as the eye could see, apart from Luya, everyone else was from the myriad Devil Ridge. Body cultivator, spell cultivator, weapon cultivator, and himself, a ghost cultivator. The gathering of the 4 major factions, such a lineup could not help but make the connection. Moreover, when those people appeared, they faintly surrounded Luya in the middle. Chapter 780. Luya's strength was hard to describe without experiencing it firsthand. However, no matter how strong he was still only at the Cloud River tier. In a one-on-one battle, no one at the Cloud River tier could be his match. But what if these people in front of him joined forces? In addition, he could ambush them secretly. Even Luya might not be unkillable. Ing Wuji's mind instantly became active. If he could think of this, how could the others not think of it? If they missed today, it would probably be very difficult to gather such a lineup to deal with Luya in the future. In the wilderness, Luya was alone, and several top elites of the myriad Demon Ridge had gathered. For a time, killing intent surged on the peak of the nameless mountain, and the mountain wind was bleak. Even in such a situation, Luya was as steady as a mountain, sitting upright without moving. The Pan Mountain Saber was placed horizontally on his legs, and his eyes were slightly lowered. This attitude of not taking them seriously undoubtedly made the few people who had come even more eager to try. I advise you to dispel the thoughts in your hearts. So do so, CC first, Lan Zi suddenly said. At this moment, it was Lan Zi who spoke abruptly. Her beautiful eyes swept the surroundings as her red lips parted slightly. I presume all of you have the same reason for being able to come here at a time like this. A premonition from the unseen world made all of you gather here, and it wasn't for all of you to join forces against him. Not to mention whether you can really kill him, even if you can, I'm afraid there will be some unexpected variables. Fighting spirit burned in Yang Yuan's eyes as he stared at Lu Yi, his gaze unwavering. How would we know if we don't try? Lu Qing's eyes flashed, and he looked at Lan Zi. Fellow cultivator Lan seems to know something? The Cloud River tier slowly shook his head. I don't know much more than you, but I understand that only by following the heavens can one achieve success. Lu Yi frowned thoughtfully. Following the heavens. To put it bluntly, they had all come here under the secret guidance of the heavens. He suspected that Bo Shuyan was the same. This might have something to do with them showing enough brilliance in the Lu Qing battle for supremacy. It could be considered a manifestation of the heavens' favor. Since this was the case, fellow cultivator Lu, as the Lu Qing battle champion, undoubtedly received the greatest favor. Thus, the heavens would not put him in a situation where he could not resist. That was what the Cloud River tear meant. As a matter of fact, Lu Yi could feel that when he wanted to kill Bo Shuyan, he also had a premonition that something bad would happen if he attacked fellow Taoist Lu. Why has Tianji gathered us here? Feng Ruli frowned. He had the same feeling as Bo Shu. The fierce throbbing in his heart made him unable to make up his mind to attack Yang Yuan. This feeling made him very uncomfortable. Who knows? Bo Shuyan revealed a meaningful smile and looked at Yang Yuan. Perhaps he wants us to work together to solve something? Join forces? Yunhe was shocked. What could Lu Qing have on the battlefield that required them to work together to solve? If that was the case, then it would be extremely safe. What do you think, Lan Zi? The Cloud River Tear asked as he looked at Yang Yuan. Bo Shu looked up at him and calmly said, "What makes you think that I know more than you?" He had been waiting here for the past 2 days, and had thought about many things. Previously, he had not been able to sort out his thoughts. However, when he sensed several auras hiding in the dark, he had a vague guess. When the Cloud River Tear suddenly appeared, this guess was confirmed. The Cloud River Tear's words coincided with his guess. Based on the price, Lu Qing battle champion. The Cloud River Tear didn't seem to be bothered by Lan Zi's sharp gaze, and he continued, "The heavens favor us more than others. Thus, Lan Zi, if you really know something, why don't you tell me frankly? Let's sit down and have a good talk." Bo Shu slowly shook her head. "I don't know anything." Apart from the 4 sealed pillars of heaven's mystery that he had obtained previously, he did not know more than the Cloud River Tear and the others. The Cloud River Tear sighed. Bo Shuyan, she seemed to want to persuade her further. However, just as she spoke, she suddenly turned to look in a certain direction. Someone else is coming. Ing Wuji, who was hiding in the dark, was already numb. The newcomer's aura was extremely sharp. When a dark sword light appeared in everyone's vision, the overwhelming sword intent had already enveloped the entire place. The sword light landed on the spirit mountain, revealing a figure as straight as a sword. Mu Qingyun. When they saw the newcomer, whether it was Bo Shu, Yunhe, or Feng Ruli, their expressions all became serious. Previously, they had been thinking that Lu Qing, the first in the smoke battle champion ranking, and the second in the Cloud River tier, had come, followed by the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Only Mu Qingyun, who was ranked 3rd, had not been seen. They did not know why the heavens had missed him. Now, it seemed that Mu Qingyun had not been missed. Rather, he was on his way here and had only appeared now. Is this the variable? Lu Yi said thoughtfully. The Cloud River tier had said before that even if they really made a move against Yang Yuan, it was not certain whether they could kill him. Even if they could, there would definitely be some unexpected variable. Looking at it this way, it had really come true. If they had made a move just now, they definitely would not have been able to kill Lu Qing in a short time. The battle here was calm. If Mu Qingyun brazenly charged into the battlefield, all their efforts would be in vain. Looking at it this way, things were really as the Cloud River tier had said. The heavens probably wanted them to work together to do something. Otherwise, there was no reason for all of them to be drawn here. The top 6 of the Lu Qing battle champion ranking had gathered. Would there be more people coming here? Bewilderment arose in their hearts at the same time. The previous restlessness disappeared instantly after Mu Qingyun's arrival. After landing, Mu Qingyun turned to look at the figures around him. Sword chi circled around him, and his whole person was like an unsheathed sharp sword. No one would believe that anyone who dared to harm him would definitely face a thunderous counterattack. He looked at Yang Yuan and bowed. Bo Shuyan. Although he had never met Yang Yuan before, and Yang Yuan was even wearing a mask at this moment, he still recognized Bo Shu at a glance. Lu Qing's cultivation was at the 8th order, but he was surrounded by these top Lu Qing realm masters. His aura was also as steady as Yang Yuan's. In this world, who else could it be but Yang Yuan? Senior brother Mu. Yang Yuan returned the greeting. Are they trying to make things difficult for you? Mu Qingyun's gaze swept across the Cloud River tier and the others. As soon as he saw Bo Shu being surrounded, he naturally made the connection. Not to mention that they were both members of the Grand Heaven Alliance. Even if they were cultivators from the same sect in the War Province, they should help and support each other when they were outside. Moreover, Li Baxian had a very close relationship with the North Profound Sword sect, and Bo Shu had a close relationship with Li Baxian. With this layer of relationship, the two were naturally close. It's a little simple. Bo Shu didn't know how to explain the current situation, so she could only tell Bo Shuyen's previous guess. After hearing it, Mu Qingyun didn't express any opinions. He just said, "If you have any difficulties, just let me know." Yang Yuan nodded. Mu Qingyun turned his head to look in another direction. "Sneaky, get out here." With a soft shout, everyone hurriedly looked in that direction, and they were all shocked. There was actually someone hiding in the dark? Ing Wuji cursed Mu Qingyun in his heart, but now that things had come to this, how could he continue to hide? To be honest, he wasn't surprised that Bo Shuyen could detect his whereabouts, because he had long felt that Bo Shuyen's mind was a little strange this time. However, fellow Taoist Lu didn't reveal his whereabouts, so he was able to hide in the dark, but he didn't expect to be exposed by Mu Qingyun. He had no choice but to reveal himself and slowly walk forward. Awkwardly and politely, he cupped his hands at everyone. "Greetings, fellow Taoists, Ing Wuji." When he appeared, everyone had already recognized him. After all, he was the most powerful ghost cultivator in Lu Qing's realm. Even if they hadn't seen him before, they had heard a lot about him. Now that they saw him, they immediately knew that he deserved his reputation. Not to mention other things, just the ability to hide in the distance for so long without being detected by them was not something that a ghost cultivator could have. "He's not in the top 10, Bo Shu couldn't help but mutter. So many elites had already gathered here, and everyone was also guessing whether more people would come, whether Lu Qing would be in the top 10 of the top 100 list. But now, it seemed that this wasn't the case. Because Ing Wuji wasn't in the top 10. However, he was from the Myriad Demon Ridge after all, and he was a ghost cultivator. At certain times and occasions, the ability that he could display might be better than the top 10. "Brother Ing, you were also guided here?" Bo Shu asked. Ing Wuji nodded. "That's right." He couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "So what if I'm not in the top 10? Is 16th worse than you?" Lu Yi looked around and saw the faces of the people around him, silently calculating in his heart. Body cultivator, weapon cultivator, spell cultivator, ghost cultivator, and they were all people who had shown in Lu Qing's competition before, including fellow Taoist Lu and Yun Hejing, who were first and second. Now, it seemed that Yun Hejing's previous guess was very likely true. Heaven's Secret had gone to great lengths to gather them here, and perhaps they really had to resolve some troublesome matter. Before coming here, everyone had thought that there was a fated chance that belonged to them, but now it seemed that this fated chance wasn't unique to them, but shared by everyone. In this way, they would definitely have to work together. On the Cloud River battlefield, it was not rare for cultivators from the two camps to work together. In many mystery realms, there were stories of cultivators from the two camps working together to resist the enemy. But, with such a lineup, perhaps more people would come, which meant that the matter to be resolved was something that only Yun Hejing could interfere with, and it was accompanied by great danger. If possible, he would rather not have come here. But there was no way to retreat from this kind of matter. If he really retreated here, perhaps there wouldn't be any substantial damage in the short term, but the favor of Heaven's Secret that he had painstakingly obtained would definitely vanish, and this was something that he absolutely couldn't accept. For any cultivator of the 9 provinces, it was extremely difficult to obtain the favor of Heaven's Secret. Aside from some special grand events, like the Cloud River battle, cultivators had no way to obtain the favor of Heaven's Secret, and there was no method that could be used as a reference. Who else would come? Not only was Lu Qing thinking about this, the others were also curious. Chapter 781. On the nameless peak, everyone was either sitting or standing. The atmosphere was quiet. Even those from the Myriad Demon Ridge camp were not in the mood to talk. As for whether or not they secretly used the battlefield mark to send messages, that was unknown. After all, this kind of thing left no trace. Even if everyone was suspicious in their hearts, they were calm on the surface. Only Wuxia was extremely uncomfortable. He was a ghost cultivator, and only by walking in the dark could he unleash his full strength. Revealing himself so openly like this gave him the illusion that he had been stripped naked. Especially when everyone here was extremely strong and he was the weakest one. In order to hide his uneasiness, he leaned against a big tree. Up, he played with his curved saber spirit stem in his hand. Mieshueru had given it life and it danced between his 5 fingers in a beautiful arc time past. At a certain moment, everyone suddenly felt something and raised their heads to look in a certain direction. Someone else was coming. In that direction, a stream of light was rapidly approaching. Through that stream of light, a basket-like flying spirit artifact could be vaguely seen. A graceful figure was sitting inside. In the 9 provinces, there were many types of flying spirit artifacts. The most common type was the streamlined spirit boat. Although this kind of basket-like flying spirit artifact was rare, it was not uncommon and was loved by some female cultivators. So when they saw this basket-like spirit artifact, everyone knew that it was a female cultivator. Looking at the spirit energy fluctuations she was using, she was only at the 7th order Cloud River realm. She should be passing by. Everyone immediately lost interest and retracted their gazes. Only Lu Yi, under her mask, stared straight at the stream of light flying over. Deep in her heart, she was bewildered. Why was she here? Was she here too? It shouldn't be. But thinking about it carefully, at this moment, those gathered on the peak were Mo Rong, Shirgu, Qiuyu, and Yanyu. Among the 5 factions, one was indeed missing. Little Book Pavilion, but why did it have to be her? Ripples appeared in her heart, but Lu Ye's expression did not change. In an instant, the flower basket had flown to the top of the spirit peak. The stream of light dissipated, revealing a plump figure sitting on it. Looking down, the person was stunned. There were actually so many people gathered in M City, and all of them seemed to be extremely strong. Almost instinctively, she wanted to activate her spiritual artifact and flee. When encountering such a situation in the wilderness, it was best to leave as soon as possible. Who knew what these people were doing here and whether they were good people? However, after seeing Lu Ye's figure, the panic in his heart instantly calmed down. So he was here too. Did he also come here by following his senses? That should be it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be such a coincidence. After all, they had only been separated for a short while. She had sneakily joined him half a day after he had left. Before that, there had been no communication between them. It seemed that not only was she hiding something from him, but he was also hiding something from her. This was an indisputable matter. Their concealment wasn't intentional. Instead, it was a faint warning that they couldn't speak of. Many thoughts flashed through his mind, but the person had already sent the flower basket to land on the peak. For a moment, many pairs of bewildered eyes looked at her. Everyone had the same thought in their minds. Is this 7th order female cultivator the same? Although Lu Yi was only an 8th order Cloud River realm cultivator, he was the strongest cultivator in the Cloud River realm. His strength was stronger than everyone present. How could this female cultivator be so strong? Could it be that her strength was on par with everyone present? After landing on the peak, the female cultivator gracefully bowed. Greetings, fellow Taoists. Was everyone present, whether they were from Myriad Demons Ridge or Grand Heaven Alliance, silently recalled this name in their hearts. None of them had any impression of it. They were certain that they had never heard of it before. On the Spirit Stream battlefield, after Lu Yi left, Hua Si dominated the Spirit Stream battlefield for nearly a year. However, that was only a matter of Spirit Stream realm cultivators. She didn't stir up trouble everywhere like Lu Yi, so she didn't attract too much attention. The elders of Tranquil Gate and Li Wan Pei Shan had heard of Hua Si's name. They knew that this medical cultivator had some amazing skills. However, Cloud River Realm cultivators didn't participate in the management of their sections. They usually cultivated diligently, so how could they pay attention to the Spirit Stream battlefield? To them, Wuxia was a complete stranger who they had never heard of. They didn't even know which camp she belonged to, let alone which sect she came from. Lu Qing frowned and asked, "Junior sister, why have you come here?" He didn't ask directly, because he wasn't sure why Wuxia had come here. Wuxia smiled gently, and instead of answering, she asked, "Then why have you come here, senior brother?" Lu Qing nodded, already understanding. He exchanged a look with Yang Yuan, who was standing beside him, and they both felt a little incredulous. This female cultivator was really like them. She had come here by following a trace of her intuition. Lan Zi looked Wuxia up and down for a while, and then said thoughtfully, "Junior sister Hua is a medical cultivator?" Wuxia replied with a smile, "Senior sister, you have sharp eyes. I am indeed a medical cultivator." When these words were said, almost everyone's expression became serious. Hundreds of mountains, Feng Gong, Fu Fu, and Guiyin were all here. They had gathered here to join forces to solve some problem. That problem was definitely something that only Cloud River tier cultivators could solve. Moreover, it was definitely very dangerous. Thinking back to the previous Cloud River Battle Royale, perhaps this Cloud River Battle Royale was organized to solve this problem. Otherwise, it wouldn't have included the top 6 cultivators. Now, another medical cultivator had come. This undoubtedly meant that the problem that they needed to solve was more dangerous than they had imagined. Therefore, a medical cultivator had come along to help them treat their injuries. Everyone's hearts were heavy, and only Ying Wuji was cheering in his heart. "I'm finally not the weakest one." When he looked at Wuxia again, he felt that this junior sister medical cultivator was really pleasing to the eye. Just looking at her made one feel happy. Moreover, since she was chosen by Tianji, her medical cultivation skills were definitely not bad. But then again, a 7th order cultivation was still too low. They all had 8th and 9th order medical cultivators in their respective sects, but none of them were chosen. Instead, this medical cultivator named Wuxia was chosen. They didn't know what Heaven's Secret's criteria were. After a few simple questions and answers, silence fell again. Huaxi's beautiful eyes swept around, but her gaze didn't stop on Lu Yi. Lu Yi also didn't have any intention of greeting her. The two of them tacitly treated each other as strangers. At this moment, the situation was treacherous. Hiding the relationship between the two might lead to some unexpected gains. After a short while, Huaxi walked towards Lan Zi. Among the people present, only she and Lan Zi were female cultivators. Logically speaking, she should follow Lan Zi and seek protection. Therefore, no one was surprised by Huaxi's choice. Lan Zi didn't refuse. She could feel that this matter was probably very troublesome and dangerous. Since Heaven's Secret had chosen Huaxi as the medical cultivator of this team, she must have her own uniqueness. Lan Zi would definitely need her help in the future. Therefore, her attitude towards Huaxi was quite cordial. Even though they had just met, they could still chat with each other. As soon as the dust settled, another stream of light swept over from another direction. The stream of light was yellow in color and looked solid and heavy, giving off a feeling that it was impregnable. As the stream of light approached, an invincible aura rapidly approached. It was as if even if there were thousands of soldiers and horses in front of it, the figure in the stream of light would still be able to kill them all. Another one. Everyone immediately perked up and looked towards the stream of light. But before they could see it clearly, it had already arrived. The stream of light didn't seem to notice the many powerful auras on the peak. Or rather, even if it didn't care at all and directly descended. With a bang, a shockwave swept out and dust flew everywhere. Everyone frowned and pushed their spirit chi to disperse the dust around them. When they looked again, they were all stunned. They saw a tower-like figure standing in the middle of the battlefield. His body was surging with vitality. Half of his clothes were exposed, revealing his firm chest and slightly bulging muscles. His entire body was filled with an indescribable sense of power. Yang Yuan, who was from Shocking Void Mountain, narrowed his eyes. With just a glance, he could tell that this person was also an individual cultivator. And judging from the other party's physique and vitality, he didn't seem to be inferior to himself. But the spirit energy fluctuations coming from the other party were clearly only at the 7th order. Another 7th order cultivator. Under his mask, the corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched violently. It was understandable that Hua Xiai suddenly came here. She was a medical cultivator and her methods were strange and unpredictable. He could understand why she was chosen by Heaven's Secret. But Giant Armor was also here. Lu Yi really wanted to lift his mask and ask him in front of his face. Is this what you meant by coming out for a walk after a long period of silence? This Giant Armor guy has really changed. He has his own little secret. When Giant Armor landed on the battlefield, he felt many powerful auras around him. At the same time, he also sensed 2 familiar auras. He didn't even need to look to know that they were Lu Yi and Hua Xi's auras. He didn't expect to meet them here. He was overjoyed and was about to grin at Lu Yi when he saw Lu Yi sitting motionlessly. He didn't even raise his head, as if he didn't recognize him. Looking back at Hua Xiai, Giant Armor saw her standing with a female cultivator he didn't recognize. At this moment, Giant Armor had a flash of inspiration in his mind and vaguely realized something. Giant Armor wasn't stupid. He was just a little simple-minded and didn't bother to think about complicated things. But this didn't mean that he couldn't see some of the strangeness in the battlefield at this moment. So in an instant he judged one thing. Lu Yi and Hua Xiai should be pretending not to know each other at this moment. He mustn't expose them. After a brief hesitation, he fiercely exhaled the turbid qi in his body. 2 streams of air rushed out of his nostrils and rushed in all directions. He said in a muffled voice, "Giant Armor is here." He clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.